Hello and welcome to Spotlight, the official podcast of Grapple. I'm Benno.
I'm JP.
I'm Gareth.
And I'm Matty.
That's the rarest of things. It's a Wednesday Spotlight this week, and all four of us are in the room, at least for the intro part of the show, as it is also Dealer's Choice Month continuing. We are into week 3 of Dealer's Choice. Somehow all still standing. Somehow JP's still here after I put him through gym. Garrett's still here, despite putting him through gym as well. I felt like another unreasonable, agreeable episode of a podcast with you and me, Matty, on the same side of history once again. Big fans of Jim back in the day, weren't we, for that Ultimate Warrior mixtape podcast? We were the kids with the face paint on, and these two were the not too happy actual grown-ups.
It's a generational,
try and talk some sense into us, yeah.
Generational divide.
I say, like 4 years younger than.
Yeah, that's what's happening here.
How you feeling, Gareth, after that one? Good to have you on the intro. I reckon we turned you a bit, Gareth. I think you were, you were enjoying a bit of Big Match Jim.
Yeah, defo. There's like just some of those, just like, even though not the biggest fan of him, just some like great memories from your childhood, either, just like certain angles or, certain matches that unquestionably are fucking 5-star matches, or just like matches that are just so big from the sort of like magnitude, the stardom and things like that, how can you not like them, just to see them
Timeless.
as a spectacle? But just great. Anytime we go back to that time period, always gonna have a fucking smile on my face.
Yeah, I knew it kind of like, despite it being Jim, I think it kind of had you written all over it, that show. But I was glad to throw a few, a couple of hidden gems at you. Found the again, thank you to Michael Hamflet who sent me the link of the Ultimate Warrior versus Sergeant Slaughter match. Which, if you haven't seen it, folks, from SAS, was it, JP? What did you describe it as? Like they're a tire SWS tire company, are they? Who put on this weird 1981 show?
Natural connection to professional wrestling. I don't know what you're on about. These specs that I wear for video viewers, yeah, they would have made those, and they thought, well, how can we piss away millions? Let's make a wrestling company, and let's get Mad Jim over as well. So
truly Mad Jim, though, full on. Like we were saying this at the weekend when I saw you at Rev Pro, JP. I'm almost certain, like I've come up with like a conspiracy theory now. I'm sure that just at some point Jim was like, "Oh, I'm going to Japan. How do they wrestle out there? What do they do?" And somebody somewhere stuck him a Bruiser Brody tape, and he's seen one tape and gone, "Oh, that's how they wrestle in Japan." And folks, if you haven't seen it, listen to the podcast, watch the match though, because like steel chairs, tables, fucking fans going flying, it's all there. If you don't believe me that Jim's got the matches, he actually kind of does.
I mean, this is just such a brilliant show, such a mental match, but just a brilliant show. Absolutely loved it from beginning to end, as much as I hate him, because I just think, look, if you saw somebody dressed like Jim in Ultimate Warrior gear outside the shopping centre, you walk in the other direction, don't you? You walk a million miles away. The idea of him being somehow popular to people is stuff of a madman's dreams. But has he had some big matches? Absolutely. And has he had better big matches than William/Steve Regal? Absolutely. Yep, I said it this time, and I'm happy for that hill. And
yeah, we tried to answer the question. Like I say, it was my choice of is he a cunt? Absolutely. Is he a good wrestler? Probably not. But did he have good matches? Well, you'll have to listen to the mixtape to find out. But yeah, hopefully everybody out there enjoyed that one. It's a good trip down memory lane for me, and a good bit of nostalgia to do Dealer's Choice Week 2. But yeah, over on the Patreon/YouTube membership, we're gonna have Dealer's Choice Week 3 coming up, and it is over to JP for his pick. And Gareth, you wound up last again. I don't know how that constantly seems to happen. Yeah. Every time we've done it, I'm pretty sure. It's just more time for you to think it through, though, Gareth, to set us up and to see what we've got in for the last week. Send us home the right way, I don't know, but before we go to JP, are you settled, Gareth? Would you have been something we'd have put you up for week 3? Did you know what you were going to do?
I've changed every single week so far. Like every week, if it had been my call, it would have been something different on each week. And now I'm settled. I'm locked in for. But when we announce mine this time next week, it might change again. You never know. Never know. But there's a few irons in the fire there.
Okay. Any guesses on that one, Matty, or what JP's might be this week?
I think
a film.
Yeah, Benno, I don't like the way we're agreeing so much. I think
Give
it's
it 5
a film.
minutes, mate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think it's definitely a film too, 100%. With Gareth, because he has been changing. No, I can't even give it a guess, to be honest. But JP, definitely a feature film, mate. We're on it.
Okay.
Any thoughts, Gareth?
Yeah, I thought he said something the other day, didn't he, about runtime or something like that, and it just made me think film sort of thing. So we'll see. I'm sure it's a good one.
Go on. Put us out of our misery, JP. Go on.
Well, I mean, as always with Dealer's Choice, I tend to go a bit left field. You're all wrong. It's not a film.
Wow.
And it's also something that I've never seen in its entirety. And as soon as it came up, because I thought to myself, I'm a lazy bastard. I don't like to do big, long fucking playlists. I can't be bothered. Can't be bothered to do it. In some ways, I like it to be like a snap.
Connor. Just doing Matty, just get him on the blower. Thanks, Connor.
But it's like, I wanted something that was like a kind of a snapshot in time, but I also wanted to do something that is like, if we don't do it now, are we ever going to get round to do it? Will it be just an idea on a list, which was the clue really for it? And as soon as I thought of this one, I thought of all the sacred cows territory. So we're all going to be well, mate, that's sacred and it gets left alone.
That's all fiction.
That's Richard's. Yeah.
Me.
So I've gone with, it's a supercard review, and it's what was generally regarded as supposed to be one of the best pay-per-views of all time, and it's AAA When Worlds Collide from 1994.
Good shot.
Like it, JP. I like that.
I'm assuming, like me, I've seen.
Benno's got to Google it now. Haven't you, Ben? You've got to Google that now.
I'm not even dignified with that response, Fed boy. Go on.
Does Conan have a good match? Like, he's in the main event of what is one of the most critically praised pay-per-views of all time. So I'm kind of intrigued by it. It's easy to watch. It's out there. I mean, qualities of the copies kind of vary depending on where you go. The one on YouTube is like from Wrestling Classics is a bit ropey on there. But it's one of these things where I've seen bits of it. I don't know if I've ever sat down and watched it all as one show in kind of like one sitting. And it's a little over it's about 2.25 hours from beginning to end, unless you want to watch like the half an hour pre-show as well. But it's just like people know are young. Conan when he could move at that point. Yeah, it's if you're watching Chris Cruz on a pre-show, it's like, yeah, maybe that might be the step too far. But again, just like to choose something a little bit different for that. And so, yeah, have none of you ever watched it the whole way through before?
For me, it's one of two shows that I associate massively with Power Slam. Might even have another Power Slam Observe this coming up as well. We could actually maybe tie into this. But it was one that Finn Martin always seemed to go on about. And I think it won the award that year, didn't it, for like Show of the Year? And I'd always see it in like, that year's awards come out, and obviously Shawn Michaels would win Match of the Year because he always did. But when it'd have like the backlog of previous shows of the year, just Lidl and Gareth there, that would always come up. Like that would always be there. And like worst show of all time would be like Heroes of Wrestling, and they were like the two like yin and yang of Finn Martin that he constantly bring up, but never actually seen it. No, I've actually never seen it. I presume I'll have seen like maybe a match that had appeared on like a WWE set or something like that, Matt. I'm sure at some point that will have happened on Ray's set or something like that.
Eddie's, isn't it? But this is like Simon's alluded to. This is one of the original like Super J Cup. This pay-per-view. This is the original like the tape trading. We've got to see this. We've got to see this thing. But I don't think I've seen it in its entirety either, Benno. So looking forward to this one, JP. Looking forward to it, mate.
Okay. I'm glad I'll be sending
memories.
Big time. Me too. I'm the same as you. It's a Power Slam thing. This one, I've definitely never watched it start to end. I know that I've watched some matches of it, but fucking years and years and years ago, like a long time ago. So yeah, 100%. It's a good one to tick off the list there. That never watched start to end, and 2 hours 15 always sounds good to me too, JP.
Yeah. That was like a big part of it. Yeah, it was a big part. Definitely beyond the 3. And that's why I can't do like some fucking weird, long, protracted playlist or something like that. And I thought, with this one, it was just like kind of almost like that bucket list stuff of like, I've never seen. This is the chance to do it. So yeah, I'm glad you're all intrigued by it. I have no expectation. We could end up fucking slagging it off all of the way. So who can tell, really? And I'm hoping though, out of the very least, we all get some sort of DM from someone saying, "Do you listen to my podcast?" Because if we get that as a result of this, then our job is done.
Also, do you want some news? The AAA guys are being dickheads backstage at Dynamite again. We'll throw that into only fucking Carlos. No, love it. Great pick, JP. Yeah, great one to follow up the gym mixtape. Will it have 5-star matches? Will it have 6-star matches? I guess we'll find out. But no, it's going to be a fun little watch. And yeah, thank you to a couple people, but at Rev Pro as well, who listened to the gym one, who are enjoying Dealer's Choice Month. Got a couple of compliments for your show as well, Matty. Hollywood Rock, if people haven't checked that out already, is always our big month. And yeah, sounds like we're going to be living up to it for another week. Just over to you now, Gareth, to think about it for the next week or so. But I'm sure you'll come up with something as well. But yeah, before we let you guys go, I was going to say, Gareth, unless your one, Gareth, is like just a deep cut on the last 4 weeks or 4 months worth of AW, however much it is. It's like you do 1 week without a collision, and we do a spotlight on a Wednesday, and all of a sudden Gareth's caught up. I'll move the AW segment up before you go, Gareth. Any thoughts on that? Anything you want to throw in before we let you go? How's the big catch up gone? You feeling good about AW going into the pay-per-view? Obviously, we'll avoid anything too time sensitive with Dynamite airing between the time we finish and I get this episode.
No, that absence of collision definitely helped. That was a bonus when I found that there was 2 hours less that I needed to catch up on. But it's fine. It's been absolutely fine.
Functional.
I would say it's yeah. For all the boxes that it wasn't ticking pre-Christmas. And then there's different boxes that it is ticking now for different people when it comes to sort of like matches and stuff like that. It just still feels like there's a big hole in it the other way for me at the moment, just like storyline wise and things. I'm watching people have matches that I'm like, yeah, this is a good match. These two professional wrestlers are having here. This is a 3.75 4-star match, but why am I watching it? What are my reasons to engage in this and care about this kind of thing? I think there's a balance somewhere in the middle for me that they need to hit, because I think I was definitely more pro than you guys, wasn't I, in terms of like the consistency of booking and things like that when things were like a couple of months ago. But yeah, I don't know. It's there. I'm teetering. I'm still watching. I'm still kind of like still following along for that emergency phone call that I might be needed on a spotlight one day or something. Like,
I've got a pay-per-view coming up. I was going to say, guarantee the listeners.
It's that time.
Love to have you behind.
But yeah, I don't know. There's also that part of me that's thinking, fucking hell, like I might start picking and choosing here, because it's when you've got the full spec, the idea of like 5 hours a week of it, and I'm sitting there thinking like, am I just hanging on here in the hope that something does get like really, really good kind of thing? And you're going, hang about, it's been half a decade now. Come on.
Yeah, Sue put that on Twitter this week, didn't he? Like the comparison of the two different the Dynamite. I can't remember what number are we up to? Like
279.
I think it is something like that.
226.
Yeah, wild number like that, but the equivalent Nitro in the year 2000, which it was like year 2000, like February, March time, was like, fuck, WWE was already on the way out. Like the names were still knocking around, but like, the bodies were there, but the brains probably
I think he was more in attendance for that Nitro though, Benno, than Dynamite last week. I'm just calling facts out. That's all I'm saying.
You're not, because you don't. What's the Dynamite attendance this week?
It was.
You only know the bad facts.
Like, was it over 2,000?
This week coming up, they've done a good.
Oh, sorry.
Not getting into it. It only Vince Russo only forwards these emails when it's bad news. But I'm glad to see you still hanging on, Gareth, in the mix in general. I was going to ask you as well. How do you feel about Hangman Page and Swerve Strickland? Is that a double turn? You'll always argue the Brett and Steve one isn't. Where does it fit in the pantheon of double turns?
It just feels like I don't know. It feels like the crowd have. I feel like the crowd have done it rather than it been something that's been intentional by the booking. I just feel like the crowd have decided, no, that's our guy. That isn't, kind of, as opposed to something that they've sort of consciously tried to do in any way. So it doesn't tick that same box for me. Like it feels like it could turn up in a different location next week, and the crowd could just go the other way. But at least it's something remotely interesting. I'll give them that. See how long they can squeeze the juice out of that one.
Fair enough. Well, we're excited. Hopefully, we'll get you on for the pay-per-view review. I'm sure you're hyped for it. Get to see Sting retire, and might even do some Sting crossover content in the month of March to fill that in as well. Like I say, I think where me and JP have kind of been on it has been like, I think it's been solid. You know what I mean? That the pay-per-view feels relatively well booked. This might not age great depending on Dynamite tonight, but it feels, I's are being dotted, T's are being crossed. We're doing the basics. Let's, get through a pay-per-view cycle, and maybe we can learn lessons going forward. What's he laughing at? I don't... What now?
No, I'm enjoying it because you've said that when I've been listening on the weekend show and that. It's you're right though, aren't you? That's all. I'm just agreeing and laughing. I'm having a good time.
One good segment and Raw's good, apparently. Anyway, Gareth, anything else you want to say before you go? Do you want to stick around for the Bloodline? I assume you are, Matt. Are you sticking around to chat a little bit of Raw and SmackDown before we let you go?
Yeah, of course, mate. Of course.
Boss.
Yeah, no, I won't. I'll just see the 1 minute YouTube clips of the promos each week as they just book themselves into reverse and get around their bad booking and bad crowd reactions and things like that, and make Roman look like number 2 in this whole setup. So yeah, looking forward to see how that one works out. Little Roman is the new Seth Rollins, isn't he?
You are testing me now, Gareth.
Wheelman's gone rogue here, hasn't he? He really has.
He's gone off track, mate. He's on a different fucking circuit here. You know what I mean?
Matty, tell me when I'm telling lies.
Spoken like a true Pug fan. Well, yeah, if you missed Gareth, we have over on the pre-show tonight where we chatted all kinds over there. But yeah, in the meantime, we'll have you back for the Dealer's Choice of the Weekend. So yeah, tune in, patreon.com/grapple for that. But nice one, Gareth. We'll catch you again at the weekend.
Take it easy,
nice
mate.
one. Have a good show,
mate.
See you later.
See you later. Oh, well, with that out the way, as a Dealer's Choice month rumbles on with a bit of a bonus AEW chat in there as well. Gareth was in danger of agreeing with the other story we got later on for AEW, the El Hijo del Ice Cube story, where I feel like you and him would get on, Matt. You and Ice Cube Jr., whose one key talent is looking like his dad, with saying that I've actually enjoyed a couple of... What was that film he was in last year, that crime film?
Oh, he's in Den of Thieves. Den of Thieves with Butler.
Yeah,
great
film.
He
was good in that.
He's bossing that as well. He's really good in that, yeah.
I take it back, he's all right.
JP's a good film, that, mate. Get on that.
He was cracking in straight out of Compton, obviously, but then he was playing his old fella, and he, like you said, Benno, Andy looks like him, but it's a weird situation when he has to play himself, holding himself as a baby. It's play his dad holding himself as a baby as he writes the Friday script. Giggling to himself. It was a scene that just sort of stuck with me on that.
It's got one of those great biopic scenes in it. It's like, hey, Dad, what are you writing there? And he turns around to the camera and goes, I'm just writing a little film. Oh, what's it called? Friday. It's like, oh, fuck off. Like, I hate biopics. Iron Claw was all right, though. Saying that, actually, yeah, we should mention that. You've seen Iron Claw since we last chatted, Matty, before we get into the WWE stuff. What did you make of it? I believe you liked it, but it sounds... Joe was at us on this. He'd read your Letterboxd review when we saw it on Sunday. It sounds like you... untypical for us, Matty liked it for the opposite reasons we did. I don't know if you've heard our film club. You weren't on it, so you probably haven't bothered. But, like, we love the first half. I thought the second half was kind of shit, and it sounds like in a typical Matty fashion.
Yeah. No, I like the second half better than the first because what it was is that obviously you have to set it up, even though like we kind of know obviously what happened and stuff. But to the people who obviously don't know the story, they set it up all right. But then once obviously it's from the wedding, isn't it? From Kevin's wedding, that scene. I think JP obviously becomes grim and it's about the tragedy and stuff from there. But I think the film picks up well, and I think Zac Efron really deserves like big credit. He kind of carries that film on his back. I think he's amazing. Like he's really, really good in that. So, but yeah, I did honestly from Kevin's wedding thought it was really, really good. And a nice little scene at the end with Marshall and Ross as well. Obviously he's that line though, JP, like what Kevin Von Erich says, like I spent all my life being a big brother, and now I'm not even a brother. I like what a horrible line that is. Like, that goes out.
I was going to say spoilers for the Von Erich tragedy, but hopefully people are aware by now. He does say that in several shoot interviews, doesn't he, JP? It's a line he often repeats about having the two lads. No, that's interesting because, like, I think again, reviews over at patreon.com/grapple. We got it in early, didn't we, JP? We got an early copy in January. Managed to sneak to an Odeon viewing. I think broadly we agree. It's like everyone I speak to, it's like, I liked it, but I just didn't like it as much as I thought I would. Like, I liked it. I gave it 3.5 stars, which is, for a film, like, pretty good in my books. I don't give that many ratings above that, but I was expecting to give it 5. And for me, it was actually, contrary to what Matty's saying, unbelievably, the second half that it was just so much packed into one. It's like we were talking about the weekend, weren't we? Like, I know you and Joe are big on like it being like a series where you could literally have gone 2 hours just on Kerry Von Erich's story, you know, from the motorbike accident to him having to hide the leg in the WWF to the drugs to the debt to all of that. Just that in itself, and that's that was kind of it's quite interesting to hear the opposite to us.
It is. It's kind of like it is funny because it was that second half is where I think also like. I'd say the snark in me, but the part of me that knows that this story is actually a lot darker and a lot bleaker than.
See, we know, JP, that's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, that's the problem, and we're kind of. So I'm really looking forward to I'm hoping this weekend I'm going to be able to try and convince Vicky to watch it, and then basically say, okay, what do you think of this? Not knowing the story, but her seeing the cast and going, oh, okay, Zac Efron, him off the bear, he was on the. Is it A Murder at the End of the World? It's like, okay, that's kind of like an interesting cast. I think she'd be sort of. I want to see it with someone who isn't a wrestling fan, but obviously, like, and I haven't gone into the Von Erich story with her on that as well because that just feels like proper bloody bleak. But I'm going to be fascinated to see what she makes of it. But then being like a kind of a mother of boys as well, I can imagine it's also going to be a bit of a fucking slog at the same time. But if you want to hear all of our thoughts on it, then obviously go to the Patreon, patreon.com/grapple. I thought it was a cracking review that we had for that as well. Like and
where we all agree definitely is Zac Efron kills her and looks fantastic along the way. Been a fan of his since 17 again, Matty. You know, great film.
Not a High School Musical guy, Benno, no.
Nah. That's where I discovered Zac.
That's working the family circuit. This is what Efron's doing. Like he had that, didn't he? He was like, all right, I'm going to do those Mega Slam shows. High School Musical, and, you know, until he's like, you know, then he started playing Ted Bundy and kind of like,
I've seen that one.
Pop over to XPW or something like that for shits and giggles. Like, you know, it's that kind of proper like territory work. But he can sing, he can dance, he can act. Fuck me, he's doing, and he's in cracking nick as well.
Yeah,
it's like, what can't the bloke do?
Throw a drop kick as well. You can do it all. Did you just quickly on that? What did you think of the wrestling footage? Because you are on the sly, Matty. You're someone who's seen the world class tapes and such. You know, did you enjoy the trip back to that? For me, that was almost like again when we talked about it in the review. I love like the 70s, 80s kind of aesthetic of it.
Yeah.
And then they throw you into like all of a sudden you were in this wrestling show and like you weren't sure if it was real or fake. Like the film didn't seem to have a direct line on whether, you know, the endings of the matches were predetermined or not, which is a bit of a shocker for a wrestling film. But I always felt like those individual scenes were great, but they almost belonged in a different film, in like a different universe. It's again, it does them so well, doesn't it? But it's like, and it's perfectly, you know, a perfect takeoff on what it was actually like on those old tapes you would have watched.
Yeah, they nailed that, Benno, as you say, like the set and like the promo stuff, and even the in-ring was great, and it makes me want to dig that set back out because I love the Freebirds Von Erich feud, JP. It's one of my favourites of all time, and there's a 5-star match in there that Dave gave it from 1984, I think it is, July the 4th, maybe. I think it's Independence Day as well. It's over that weekend, so I'm going to dig that out. But yeah, I think they nailed it well. I was happy with that. Some of the promos, though, like on there was a bit, I was doing a bit ropey. Obviously, it's been covered. It's been had its coverage online and stuff, hasn't it? So, but yeah, apart from that, I thought they nailed it. I know, yeah.
Good stuff. Well, speaking of nailing roles, speaking of acting, we should get into the first segment of the show, which is why Matty's stuck around before we get into our trip to Rev Pro High Stakes and some other matters going on in the wrestling world. We should talk some goings on from over the weekend. We did have on Smackdown Roman Reigns and The Rock having another in-ring segment in which The Rock definitely wasn't being dramatically shouted at time cues for the last 10 minutes of it. I was watching this live, Matty, on Friday night. I only watched this segment. I just threw it on. I was just looking at the clock going, is he still going? Fucking hell, come on, Dwayne. Like, I know you've been away for a while, but Jesus Christ. What did you make of Dwayne donning the, like I say, topical, donning the Hollywood Rock look? And it was kind of a bit of a takeoff of both. He looked like half Hollywood Rock, half kind of like proper Rock, because it looked like one of those, like, you know,
Versace, really?
Shirts he used to
Versace,
wear,
waistcoat.
He looked a little bit Vin Diesel as well, but them two have kind of amalgamated into the same person since they started doing the Fast and Furious films together. I think Gareth alluded to maybe some of my thoughts on it, but how did you think he came across, stood opposite Roman? And big question, is it all a big work?
Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? I think it's got to be. Obviously, the little Easter eggs there where he pointed at Roman when he was delivering his lines about Cody, and the way the camera kind of didn't catch it but did. And he said, like, Cody's story's finishing and ours is beginning. So it's all a bit of a giveaway, really, isn't it? That he's gonna help Cody win on night 2. But yeah, it was okay. And it wasn't amazing. I don't think. I think it done its job. But it wasn't like, I don't think he knocked it out the park like he can do, and like I thought he would. I think it was a bit, not little bit underwhelming, but it done its job, I think. So, you know.
I don't know. It reminded me of like Garrett's thoughts of the Hollywood Rock character, in that it didn't feel, it felt like he was doing an impression of himself. It's kind of what it was. And like, if it all turns out to be like, you know, a plan, and, you know, all the things people have pointed out of, like, you know, Peter to point at Roman when he was talking about
he's infiltrating, and he undercover.
Yeah, him and Roman being the bloodline, not the other ones involved, and the way Heyman was looking at him and that. Getting involved in lore here, Matty, I don't like it.
Yeah.
I think it's fine if that's the case. If it wasn't, I don't think it was very good. That's where I am. Like, it's like, I think it's
gonna be Ben.
I don't think. Because I've been someone as well, whenever he's come back and he's done like these fake, you know, happy to be here, pointing at his goosebumps, like stuff, I've always found it really cringe. And I was probably someone 10 years ago, a decade ago, you know, a double assignment since Den of Thieves came out. I was one of those people. I was probably one of those people who are going, I want him to come back and be The Rock. But I actually think it's hard. You can't really do that. It was of a time and place. And this, for me, I don't know if you felt the same way, JP, felt like I'm very much playing a character and saying the things he remembers he said back then, which again is fine if that's supposed to be what he's doing. But other than that, it felt a bit flat for me, and it felt like, yeah, he was, like I say, rushing for time and maybe didn't get all the material and he was supposed to. On top of, dare I say it, making Roman Reigns look very much like the 1B, as he tends to when the two of them on screen together.
That was the strange thing about this. I think when I looked at the clip, and I have to admit, I was doing it like quite rushed on today, and it was like, oh, it's 17 minutes, and it's like a good 6 minutes of those is just basically Roman's entrance in there. So it was like, bloody hell, if they were squeezing us in before the end, that was like kind of, no, it's a long entrance, that's the issue with it. But if you're going to give time to anything, you give it to this. And it did feel like he came out, he did Hollywood Rock with a bit more of a deadpan expression than him doing the kind of overt, like, kind of facial mannerisms that he does in that Hollywood Rock time. I again thought, okay, it's an incredibly timely show that we did on the Patreon for Matty's Dealer's Choice. It's kind of ridiculous. I have to say, I wasn't like necessarily like enthused by it. I just thought it felt like a very WWE segment. I don't think it wasn't as disappointing as, say, the Punk promo when he came back and he did that one on Raw, which was just like, Jesus, this is just outright bad. It's not saying anything. For this one, I thought it was like functional, and it's like, okay, we're going in a direction. This is where we are. This is what's going to be happening, and it gets a reaction. I laughed at the Mormon jokes he did. Maybe that's sacrilegious. I could care less. But he was just like slating them for like the idea of polyamory and the rest of it. And I did laugh at that one. Actually, it felt quite actively funny to me. But he was just like him playing the kind of greatest hits. Really, wasn't
that's it, JP. What you said there, it's right. It's functional. It was expected.
Yeah.
The promo and joining. Now I want to see more. I want to see what they do. They can't just keep talking. They've got to have interaction with Cody and Seth. But obviously, that's what we're.
I thought they might jump the guardrail. I thought that'll be the next angle.
It's got to happen soon,
One we
Benno.
don't
Yeah,
expect,
it's got to. Like, it can't just be this for 7 or 8 weeks. It's got to be. I'm sure at the Chamber, on the Grayson Waller effect, they're going to maybe challenge them, and then you'll get a bit of physicality next week. But it's got to kind of move on from here. Like, and you know, I'm sure it will do.
I'm not so sure, but we'll see. You're not having it that Roman looks a
no.
little.
Well, Roman give The Rock the big build up, which he would for joining the Bloodline. Benno, it wasn't Heyman, it was Roman doing it. So I you know, he invited The Rock in there and give The Rock his obviously his moment to talk. We'll see going forward what they do, but I'm not having this. I'm not having it. Just because he looks bigger doesn't mean it's just because he looks bigger, isn't it? Really? That's all it is.
How's Roman a shot? He said it looked like a foot shorter now somehow. But anytime he stood there with Rock, it's like he's shrunk in a few weeks. It's odd, isn't it? I don't know. It just something does look like. Well, no, I don't think this is good for Roman. I really don't. I think if the turn comes sooner rather than later, yeah. But as a 1-2 kind of combo, 2-man power trip, I'm not sure it is. But there we go. I mean, any other thoughts on that, Matty, or Raw? I know you caught up with that this week. They had 2 good matches, so Raw good.
3.
3
good matches. Gable and Ivar. No, boy, it's the mid-card. They had a cracker the other week, and then they had the return here, and it was got the fans into
the lad who's the Viking.
Yeah, JP, he's been having some bangers on Raw. Bronson Reed, he's had a couple with Gable now. He's actually, you know, a good worker since he's become a singles.
2 5-star matches, JP. That's what banger means in WWE land. But carry on, Matt. I'll just
here
translate for you as we go.
Here we go. Is this what we're going for? At least it was a sold out crowd getting into it as well. So that always adds to it. That always adds to it. But as you say, it was, you know, not a big advertised match. And it's one of them matches that started off a bit, you know, bit quiet, JP. But the actual in-ring work got it over by the end. So that's what we wanted. Yeah, it was bookended, Benno, by 2 good matches, Raw it was. And I think the Cody and Drew one was more... Really obviously, and even the finish was great with Solo popping up like at WrestleMania last year. Obviously, he popped up when he cost Drew against Roman, so Drew's a hypocrite by accepting it. Plus, it plays into the fact of they're obviously going to do it at WrestleMania, aren't they? And he's going to kick out Cody and get a big near fall out of that. So it just ticked every box from that. It progressed Drew as well going forward. So hopefully he wins the Chamber. So unbelievable stuff. That opener, Benno.
I did see on my phone that we were out at the time, I think, and it said oh, Bloodline appeared on Raw. I was like, oh, Bloodline. So I said that to Steffi. She was like, oh, was it all of them? Like, no, of course it wasn't. Mid-card Jim won it, and the other one, it was them too. But it was well done.
Disrespect
gives Drew something, doesn't it? And I keep saying on the show, big fan of it. Good job, Gareth is gone. Big fan of Drew at the minute, and this act he's doing at WWE. And yeah, if Cody was gonna lose, I suppose that was the way to do it. And yeah, they built up obviously the Jimmy and Jay stuff with the main event. Jey Uso losing another one in the main event. I suppose he didn't win though against Gunther. Thought that was fun. Still don't. Honestly, I think like I'm not even winding you up here, Marty. If like you know, I feel more strongly about the Roman and Rock thing, but I do think like Jay and Jimmy.
JP, you know he is, don't you? Because even you've accepted there, haven't you? You know he's winding me up.
I do. I was also laughing at Simon's comment of Bloodline black and white. That's just...
that's what we are. And that's the problem, because I think at the Rumble, like we said it at the time, and I think you agreed, Matt. I was expecting more when they went up against each other. To heat that up to be... Remember, you were talking about it being a potential main event of Mania like 1. Long way to go if they're going to get there with them too. Like, I don't think that's...
I think it started well, though, on Raw, Benno. I think they've got to put more juice into it now. He's cost him the world title at SummerSlam, obviously. He's cost him the IC title now. Obviously, doesn't want to see him win singles gold, on his own. So I think it started off well. It was a good angle, good heated angle. And hopefully, once again, like the Rock and Roman v Seth and Cody, they push on with it now and really heat it up before WrestleMania. But is it going to be main events? Probably not. But it wouldn't surprise me if they heated it up, Benno. And it did. So we'll see what happens. But, you know.
It wouldn't surprise me if it opens night 1.
maybe.
I'm honest, like
you don't
it's
want to
gonna be
close, you want to open, don't you?
Yeah, or you want that middle of the card, and then you do something sort of shit and stupid afterwards with loads of people in there to give it the requisite time. But it almost feels like for Mania they've got to go straight to a gimmick match. But I think this is me conditioned for not liking brother versus brother matches. The logic and what they've always been described.
Other than the Briscoes, like I can't think of many examples where it works.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah,
and
that's another one.
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's another one. That's the favorite,
yeah. But even then, I don't think I was mad on the. I think there's something. It's almost like you've got to go to the like really, really heated stuff and go directly from there. But yeah.
I think it'll deliver though on the night. I think that'll be. I don't think there's any question that match will deliver. I personally think it will anyway, and I'll say it'll get heated up in the next 6 weeks, and there'll be a stadium full of people enjoying it, which is what it's all about, Ben.
The sky is the limit, mate. If the sky is 3.5 stars, can't wait. Any other thoughts on Raw or SmackDown?
No, obviously.
I just lathered each other up. I know JP was a big fan of Big Mike Chandler being on in the crowd. I only saw the clip of this. I didn't actually see it.
Charisma JP. I'd never seen him before. I didn't know who he was until I seen it, and then he just come in there. JP, what a promo! Who's Charisma?
I've always been a fan of it. I know some people absolutely hate it, completely get why. It was a very UFC promo as well. He was in the WCW of MMA when he was at Bellator for ages, and then went over to UFC. And he basically would have wild fights. And it's been him and McGregor on The Ultimate Fighter as coaches. So this is the thing we're going to get used to because hey, CM Punk was at UFC 298 in Anaheim. So, like, you're going to get, like, these crossovers. This is part of, like, the TKO thing. So we better get used to them. I think also as well, I saw Bianca Belair and Montez Ford were in the crowd as well for, like, the UFC pay-per-view. So these are worlds that are going to be colliding all of the way. But, yeah, I thought he was a handy... It seemed like most MMA lads, they'd swear. It's live telly. They would just swear. They wouldn't care. He did very, very well, I thought, to kind of bring it back. Would you want to give a mic to Conor McGregor, which is obviously at some stage to have that as well, which would be something that's there. The state that bloke is in most of the time, you are playing with absolute fire, having him live. 7-second delay be damned. Like, he'll be all over the shop.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, while we're talking to doing, there's never an easy way to kind of to change gears with this stuff. We should talk the other WWE stuff that's kind of in the zeitgeist right now, and it's not as bright stuff. And there's been a few different little tidbits that have come out today. JP, firstly, a couple of comments we've actually gotten as of today, namely from firstly Randy Orton, who was interviewed by a couple of publications today on matters his career in general, but was asked and credit to Sports Illustrated for asking him the question. Justin Barrasso it was about Vince McMahon. Did note in his comments that I've got this to say: I wouldn't be where I am without Vince McMahon taking a chance on me a handful of times. I would not be where I am today without Vince McMahon. But reading this shit, what you've seen and read, I've seen and read, and as far as commenting on that, it fucking hurts my heart. It hurts my heart. He had a similar quote that he also gave to another couple of outlets as well. Compared to this next quote we've got, JP, I mean, I think Orton almost comes off well because Robot John was also asked about the allegations today. There's a number of headlines you could go with coming out of John's answer to it. He was on the Howard Stern show of all things. Remember that? That is still a thing. And yeah, Howard Stern in his kind of style seemed to maybe lull John into a sense of comfort, and then they had pretty much what was I've listened to the entire clip. It's like a 5-minute conversation about what you do when somebody you love has allegations against them, because apparently Howard Stern has plenty of experience with that. And yeah, there's quite a lot you can go into there as far as the quote goes. There's anyone watching the video version, there's a lot of words there. doesn't really say much.
Yeah.
Does John? It's complicated to listen to, he says, rather than being complicated to talk about. Goes on about he's a big advocate of love and friendship and honesty and communication, but is also a big advocate of accountability. So you kind of think he's going somewhere there. He says, if someone's behaviour outlines so far outside your value system, then that's the end result of being accountable. But then he kind of talks himself back into a circle, JP, and is kind of like, well, I'm right now. I'm going to love the person I love, be their friend, and tell them I love you, and you have a hill to climb. And yeah, kind of circles himself from there. Doesn't do himself any other gigantic favors in there outside of saying the whole thing's super unfortunate and it sucks. It deals with an individual I love and an entity I love, and I want everyone to have the experience that I have. How do I tell a friend that I love them, but I switch to the entity and also say, how can I help? Talking about WWE. A lot of word salad there, JP. What was your reaction to John Cena being asked directly about these allegations? John Cena, by the way, who was somebody who's been pictured with before, during, and since at least the initial allegations that we heard when Vince was very first, booted out of WWE.
I just thought he was talking shit. Like when you read it, just chatting shit. I don't know what it is. It feels like somebody who's stumbling around an answer to a question they were always going to be asked at some point, given what he does and given the story. And so it feels like amazing that he hadn't prepared anything better. And he gave just what felt like it was an answer where it's just like, you read the text of it and it's just like, I don't know what the fuck this is.
Wasn't it a good PR answer?
No, it wasn't a good PR answer at all. The Randy Orton answer, as much as I can understand where people may not like bits of it, I got it. I got why he would say that as it was, because it is like a fact that he isn't in the position he is in life generally if it's not for Vince McMahon. But at the same time, you can say that these are horrible allegations and this is really hard and it's stuff that would kind of like hurt him. I can kind of get that, at least as a response. The John Cena one felt like him talking kind of around it, which feels like, oh, that's just a bit fucking sleazier. It's just like you're almost not acknowledging it because you're talking about how it'd be great if, we can basically just love people. And you're just like, fuck off, mate. It's not really the time for that kind of bullshit, new age bollocks, really. It's like, this is hard stories and hard stuff. And it also comes back to how I always like, one of the things I remember on the Janelle Grant complaint was that there were thousands of people who were sent these like images and stuff from them. And that's always what makes it hard when there's this deniability of like, I can't believe these are allegations. It's like, I can't believe that you wouldn't have heard about this if this is stuff that's going around rank and file staff members throughout the company. That's what I find hard, that in some small way it wouldn't filter in. Like the idea of him being like a jet. Yeah. They're with them all of like so much of the time that you'd have some sort of semblance that somebody at some stage would have said, look, John, you are mainstream. You've got to be wary of this guy. There are skeletons in the closet and you kind of know about them and you need to be prepared. Like you would imagine for someone who's very much as kind of PR conscious as he is, that he would have done so much better on this. But I thought it was just complete bollocks.
Yeah, it takes a lot. Like I say, that Randy Orton one, I've seen people react extremely negatively to that one as well, and I understand it. It's kind of like when Seth Rollins was asked, and I'm almost like, when it's somebody who's a employee of the company presently, I don't always know what maybe we expect them to say. There's only, Orton, gave over other comments today as well, but going as far as to say, if it's true, it's terrible. You've always got to throw the if it's true thing in because, they are still working for the company that's, as well as Vince McMahon, liable for this case. So there's only so much you can say. But like I say, that whether you agree with that response or not, Orton's, I'm sure, got his own skeletons. I honestly thought he handled it far better than Cena did, who, like I say, has got his own guilt there. And, if he's been around, I'm not the first time I've heard it said today, but like, yeah, if Vince McMahon's out there showing, I think Alan Farrell said it on Twitter, if he's showing his phone to like stagehands and stuff like that, which, as you've alluded to there, Janelle is in the Janelle Grant complaint, and he's in the Vince McMahon text messages. Does Cena not know anything? if Brock Lesnar was so deeply involved in this that we haven't got it down as a news note, but it looks like he's entirely gone from the WWE game this year. But if Brock Lesnar's like so pally with Vince and going back and forth on text, I don't know if I trust whether John Cena doesn't know more than he does. And again, if that's the case, how did he not have a better answer prepared for it? Yeah, Mikey says there. Steph said exactly this today, and she's written some great stuff about Vince. I noted it on the weekend show. Do check out her Substack on kind of the Vince McMahon problem and it not being gone just because Vince is gone. But this is something she said today. It's like, yeah, imagine like a Hollywood actor. Imagine John Cena, the Hollywood actor, putting over Harvey Weinstein, in an interview like this, or being like, well, I do, he did what he did, but I do love him. Like, it's almost unbelievable, and it's probably, again, because it's wrestling, probably thinks he's going to get away with it, probably will, him and Undertaker will be pictured front row with him at some Saudi Arabian boxing show in like 2 years or something like that, and it'll just be, business as usual. But yeah, I thought even for Robot John, I thought this was particularly badly handled. Yeah, don't think he covered himself in glory there, Matt.
No, and Cena's like this. Like when it's a normal questions, JP, isn't he? He just goes on and chats absolute fucking shit all the time than just giving it an answer. And as you said, Benno, he should have had something more prepared, the PR wise, for it if he didn't want to give anything away. Like, so yeah, it's just a lot of ways.
Maybe it was the Howard Stern element of it, and yeah, for that reason he wasn't prepared for the question. But
yeah, maybe
doesn't forgive it, and yeah, it's like with everything, as the chat is kind of saying, it's like no care for the the victims in this. It's Cowan, it's towing company line. It's how much Vince was a great father figure to me, and you can just see it in the way these words are kind of formed with these people. That is not going away easily when it comes to Vince. But I was going to say, JP, another couple of news stories definitely wanted to give some airtime to as well. There is a Chicago law firm that's out there reaching out to anybody who's witnessed or experienced abuse at WWE. The form actually does note UFC as well. Refers to the Rita Chatterton case, and also talks about the federal investigators having seized documents from WWE, and just encouraging anybody out there to come out offering a free claim review, apparently, where victims can send their contact information, and that all consultations are confidential. Shows you, JP, that this is always going to happen, isn't it? In a big case like this, there's going to be somebody trying to put together, like, whether it's a class action or something along those lines, with a likely large number of potential victims involved. I'm surprised it's even just limited to WWE and UFC, because there's probably more out there in this wrestling world. Seeing the name Rita Chatterton there just made me think about that other story this week of did she do she was guest timekeeper at that indie show this weekend, wasn't she? She goes there to do that in good faith, and then they wheeled out Velveteen Dream in the match before her. If there was a news story that ever summed up wrestling this week, it's that one. But at least there's some positive coming out of these stories in one like this.
There is, and I think this is one of the things about like story. I think they mentioned UFC because again, we're not. That might be a stab on the dark on behalf of the law firm, but just to see like how deep does this go, and is the same kind of culture exist within that as well. But I think also it might be a ploy to kind of say, okay, settlement wise, like this is also going to be a stain on the UFC, so it affects all of the TKO group and not just WWE, not just one part of it, and the UFC side of it is completely away. But it feels like almost this week, and this links into some of the other stories that are going in there as well, that there's like a review of parts of the past, and we've always kind of, when we've spoken about this, it's like the caveat of a lot of this story, some of this stuff is going to be very slow moving, and it's not going to be massive wholesale developments, but there are always going to be kind of incremental developments. And I thought, you mentioned about Rita Chatterton there as well, but you're also talking about like the Ring Boy scandal, which kind of goes back to, was it Tom Cole in there, his brother who has a podcast, and he interviewed like another sort of ring boy there who was talking about like Mel Phillips and the like, and you've kind of got like almost the history of the company and these historic allegations, the things that we ourselves as wrestling fans always knew existed, and we're just about to say, JP, but they never investigated because wrestling, and no other reason is ever given. But it almost feels like at this point, no, well, actually, there are people kind of looking at these stories in a kind of different light with a fresh pair of eyes away from it, going, oh my God, this is something that is deeply systemic within the company and has gone on for over 40 years. And it's like, well, God, wait till you get to, the death of Nancy Argentino. Then in that case, there's a whole lot of I talk about a company with skeletons in its closet. There's so much stuff to come out. So it feels like these things are going to, these are things that become part of what is the overall culture of WWE. And this is going to be a story. We always say it's always going to be ongoing. You've got a story up there about Paul Roma talking as well about, his time in the Young Stallions and then performers being propositioned and the like. When he was being interviewed on that News Nation, was it with Ashley Banfield, which again is it's really going like kind of hell for leather in terms of
we
this
feel like
story.
we're in that point of like, it feels very like Benoit case, doesn't it? When you at that point where like the news outlets were bringing people on and like Mark Miro would appear out of nowhere on like a random news network type of thing. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw Paul Roma there. I was going to, just to jump in, I was going to say what you said there, JP. Like, all these news agencies really need to do is throw on any shoot interview from the
Benno, I was just about to say that. The amount of stories on them, like, as you say there, you should just go back and listen to them. They're just like casually just telling you, aren't they, on them?
That's all it would take, because like there's enough there, and there's a lot of them. It's wrestlers openly bragging, about things they've been involved in, and not even in that too distant future, like distant past. There was Kevin Owens, show where he had wrestlers on who were admitting to all kinds they got up to in the past, and it's done with a smile on their face of like this funny rib that happened. But yeah, it's interesting to see like those types of stories being unearthed. It was Michael Elgin, that one with the Kevin Steed show one. But like you look at like say a Paul Roma appeared on News Nation and he's telling a story that I feel like I've heard before. Like how many Pat Patterson stories, did we all hear? And obviously there were the false ones that were, rooted in homophobia, but there's still other information out there that maybe as wrestling fans, we've just kind of gone, compartmentalized because of who was reporting the news, who might have been close to Pat Patterson and kind of, coloured all our perception on those types of stories, JP, when it comes to the ring boy stuff, like as you've just alluded to there, that it was all very black and white and, it wasn't as, the good guy Pat Patterson wasn't involved. Absolutely not. But more stories like this come out, the more those little side stories that we've all heard over the years are going to continue to get scratched, and who knows what's beneath the surface.
And that's it. They're the stuff that we know, and you can only imagine the people who aren't actively on-screen performers, or even on-screen in the way that a Rita Chatterton or a Mel Phillips would have been. That you're talking about people at the sort of the lower rungs of a lot of these kind of stories. But it's almost like that, I don't know if again there's going to be the level of reckoning that we kind of wondered if wrestling is really going to have, whether it's sort of like that look at the culture, which when we speak about sort of modern day WWE and we think of like backstage and in amongst the wrestlers, is something that obviously there's HR departments and the like, but they are a relatively new thing in wrestling. It has been unregulated and it has been ungoverned, and it's never been treated seriously, sitting on the kind of the outskirts of entertainment and being kind of ignored. And I think there's just a point now where it's like, hang on a minute. I think it also, and it's going to sound silly, the idea of it being a $5 billion TV deal going on to Netflix is the kind of thing where you're going, hang on a minute. There's plenty to be like, this is big stuff.
Definitely.
This can't be like, this isn't just little wrestling. It's like there's a lot of sports that don't get $5 billion TV deals. So therefore, I think there's going to be that level of scrutiny, which they've never really been prepared for. And as we've seen in a lot of the responses, they're not prepared for.
No. One last quick news story I was going to mention as well, just because we mentioned it on the weekend show, the Ashley Mazzaro story. It was an odd one, as we had used Nation, again, that name, having Cara Pipia, a lifelong friend of hers, appeared on there to give more detail. We did say on the weekend show, like, the interview did a cracking job there because it was a little bit all over the place, that interview, and we did also kind of say some of those details didn't fully line up. We're at that stage in the story, really, where, we've had Ashley Mazzaro's daughter has come out and said that she shouldn't be speaking for the family, apparently, and that she wasn't even a friend of her mother's when she passed. She was just an ex-best friend who, since her passing, been spam messaging, apparently, unsettling and delirious messages, and apparently fabricated messages as well. Unfortunately, with that part of the story, JP, where, you know, that is very much taken, you know, on face value, and the Vincels out there are gonna, you know, go, well, there you go, none of it's true. That is absolutely not what Ashley Bizarro's daughter is saying, as she does follow up with a follow-up tweet that does say, you know, everything that happened to my mum was real. I just don't trust what this woman is saying, essentially. Unfortunately, you know, kind of goes to that other story we were saying there about being on that point in the Benoit story when anybody and everybody is getting on the news. Sometimes you're gonna get, you know, some false stories like that popping up too,
and especially on TV stations like News Nation that are trying to get any kind of grip and any kind of foothold in the marketplace, and they throw stuff out there without really properly, the researchers aren't really doing their homework and things like that. And I fear that to be the case. There's always the ghoulish element of stories like this where there's people who appear out of the woodwork, and when it's the fact that it's Ashley Massaro's daughter who's saying this as well, and you think, you know, who am I likely to believe in this? And it's going to be Ashley Massaro's daughter, isn't it? And it just, it adds that kind of horrible, grimy element to an already like absolutely tragic story.
Definitely. And, you know, as she's rightly said on Twitter, obviously she does say, you know, she just wants to put it out there, but, you know, the allegations could be correct, but that's the last person her mum will want to speak in for, and that, the things her mum faced in the years with WWE were real, you know, so she makes sure to make that statement as well, so that shouldn't get lost in all the headlines there. But last story on all this, as if wrestling can't, you know, impress you anymore, JP, is, you know, with all that said, with all that going on, and with us expecting, you know, some kind of worldwide wrestling reckoning or something like that, as you alluded to before, of course, it's the perfect time for a Ric Flair biopic. Couldn't make it up, could you? Apparently, Dwayne Johnson and his ex-wife Dana Garcia's $7. He had $7 in his pocket, Matt. I don't know if he's ever mentioned that story before. Also runs a tequila company. Also Rise and Grind. Also Instagram. Apparently, they've chosen now. Under Armour, that's the other one. Isn't it? Put that in there too. Yeah, now's the time to do a Ric Flair film. Apparently, that's what we take from this period that we're in, JP. You know, Iron Claw did well, so green light for another wrestling film. That aside, any appetite to see this? Like, it seems tone deaf to me. Might explain why Flair seems to be, and again, this might be dated by the time people have seen Dynamite, to have disappeared a little bit off AEW TV the last while. Maybe that'll be a positive we get out of this one. But yeah, and as Mikey says, I don't think it's going to be that Iron Claw actor playing Flair. But any appetite for this one right now?
Not really. Partly, and it's going to sound, even if you completely remove the idea of Ric Flair and all of the horrible kind of aspects to him as a person and his story as well, it's not like this feels like it feels like we know this. We've seen it in documentary form, in various forms, like kind of over the years as well. And like as a film, I don't know if you can do any kind of, if you're trying to do like Ric Flair as a human being, I just don't think in film form, like that's like, you can't, it's not a story you can tell in 2 hours. And there are plenty of biopics that have dealt with horrible people, don't get me wrong, but you know it's not going to be treated that way. That's not what's going to be happening here. And I don't have the stomach for that. Like that's an enormous problem. I mean, and it makes me think, that is kind of, that's more the shameless, Iron Claw's had some traction. It's not made a fortune or anything else, but, you know, in the scheme of things, it's very much kind of out there. It's had like a kind of an extended cinema release. This just feels like, okay, they're going to be doing it to kind of effectively cash in. And is it going to go into any kind of in-depth look at the man himself and many of the many flaws he has? Absolutely not. Yeah. Who says it'll even happen? Because you wouldn't be surprised if more stuff came out and I just went, fucking shelve that.
Won't be that bloke from Iron Claw, will it, Matt, playing Rick in this one?
Anyone could have done a better
impression. You get Harley Race back.
Yeah.
You can do that.
He was all right, wasn't he? That was a good take. But yeah, I agree with everything JP said there. Just no interest at all in seeing that. Like them Beatles films, JP. just don't want to see them. Mate.
Yeah, let's just be glad he's not on AEW TV right now. Speaking of which, we'll let you go, Matty. But a brighter one before we go. Do you claim him? Do you claim Ice Cube Jr.? Is he your boy? We did say we'd talk about it. Do you agree with him that there's not enough video packages on AEW TV? Is that their biggest problem right now? We don't explain who these characters are. We're all very confused by what goes on TV. Please tell me you don't claim this fucking idiot.
No, to be honest, I haven't seen the latest rounds of interviews or whatever he's done this past week, but I've only just seen him on Twitter over the obviously over the years and months past, so I can't really comment, to be honest, on these new interviews. But if you're saying that, then I can't. I don't know. It's probably not more the video packages. It's more I can hear when I watch AEW, JP. I think I told you this off air last week, didn't I? So I'll get it in before I go. It's like the fans last week. You could hear a guy shouting his concessions order to another guy, and you could hear it on TV. Ben, it was that empty the arena. It's like, what are we doing here? Even Swerve acknowledged the fan. He was talking to Swerve like it was me and you talking now. It shouldn't be happening, that, mate. On a national TV show, it should not be happening. Let's be honest.
I love this folk concern, JP, like he cares.
No, Benno, everyone thinks I'm not Benno.
Matty-nomics strikes again.
No, my trolling days weren't even there, Benno, to begin with. I'm being serious, mate. You think I'm being serious? I'm glad they're doing good numbers, you said, and I'm glad there's a pay-per-view because Sting does
number
deserve.
one on cable this week for all of cable for Dynamite. Yeah,
no, that sounds right. That's all right, but the attendant, but at least they're getting it for Sting's final match because Sting does deserve a good send-off, which I'm sure he'll get. But they need to sort this out, Benno. They need to start. I keep saying it a million times, and JP, I think, agrees. You need to get someone else hired in these buildings. Maybe if it's a year out, you book them. Genuinely try and end that contract and start again. Because when you can hear, it's not even you can hear the fans in the building, Benno, for the Iron Man match. You can hear people shouting, "Get me a beer." You can just hear it in the audience.
You absolutely can't.
No, you can't, Benno. You genuinely can't. It's bad. They need to sort that out or sweeten it up.
Please send us that audio across if you do.
Please do.
Anyone, please.
Did you not see the brand.com/forum. I think there's a clip.
Don't associate me with this. My take from when I watch it, Swerve even stopped and it was dying not to acknowledge the fans shouting at him. When did you ever hear that, Benno, on a fucking big time wrestling?
When you're heckling on wrestling all the time.
When you can hear one guy literally shouting from the back. No, Benno, no.
I swear there was an example of that on WTV not that long ago. I think Punk replied to people when he was in the ring now. Did we have these conversations when Smackdown had entire sides fenced off, or is it exclusively for...
I've caught Benno fair, man. Smackdown was bloody always taped off, weren't it? The attendances. That's what... And I was saying back then, they should get their act together. And I'm being serious, Benno. It's not a good look. I know it gets enhanced, it does get enhanced on these fucking pictures you see on Twitter and all that getting thrown around. No, but when it coming across on TV like that, and you can hear it, that was my point, Benno.
I mean, the crowd were engaged in the entire show. And I'm not even an AEW guy, but that show you're talking about was 10 times better than that shite they shaved up on Monday Night for Raw. Like, what are you on about?
No, definitely not. Definitely not. But that's another argument for a different day, Benno. I'm glad we're not agreeing as much. So I'm glad we're ending on our normal terms here.
Fair enough. AEW bad and work backwards from there. Any comments, JP, on it?
Can I just say, I've got to watch Dynamite this week, guys, for the weekend show. So I hope people are looking forward to my views on that anyway on the weekend. Probably not, but...
Ironically, I think Tony Khan should put a shout out to O'Shea Jackson and get him somehow involved in some sort of angle in that case, because I think that would be
Yeah. Apparently, he's gone back at him tonight on Twitter as Tony Khan. That's the feud that will not give. But in all seriousness, yes, AEW does have a problem with being a little bit cooler than it has been in past. It's particularly cold, I think, going into this year, and yeah, they could definitely do better to book some of those buildings. But I'm not having that. Not doing enough of an explanation on who people are for these mysterious fans who can't possibly understand when a wrestler appears on screen, who they could possibly be, other than the wrestler that they're seeing on screen. I don't know. I feel like you and him need to go for a pint, Matty. You should, your bad brave brother when it comes to AEW.
Don't talk too loudly, because they might be fucking heard over the mics, isn't it? On there as well as on the
JP,
You're making it sound like it's Tetsujin 1 that they're running every fucking Wednesday, isn't it? In front of like 30 people.
Get us a pack of Nobby's nuts, mate. Get us a pack of fried roasted.
What are you drinking, man? I have that craft IPA. There we go.
Right. On that note, you've caused enough trouble, Matthew. Off with your rapscallion. And to plug before you go, we have got a show coming out later this week. I think the Patreon version is up. Free version will be with Spotlight coming out tomorrow. I think Friday. We'll have the free version. But yeah, Retro episode 4.
Retro episode 4 is coming up, and obviously, you know, most people listening will probably know the matches, but I'll just announce them very quickly before I leave, Benno. We're covering, long-time listeners will know we're covering Brett's first 5 WWF World title wins. So we've got his 5th and final World title win against The Undertaker at SummerSlam 97. Everyone will remember the finish with Shawn Michaels as the referee, but the match is actually great as well. And we've got the hidden gem this month is a WWF title defense from 1993 versus head shrinker Fatu, who's a member of the Bloodline, but he's also a member of the BSK, and that's the tie-in, JP, that it's knocking bones with the BSK, as Gareth titled it. So, yeah.
1993, mate. Be a big crowd, though. I'm sure you'll enjoy.
Manhattan Centre, Benno.
No problem.
And he's just
massive,
he booked the Manhattan Centre, no, but it's full. It's 1,000 seats.
Ring of Honor venue.
That's not me. That's not my problem. If AW had 200 in the attendance and it was a 200-seater arena, it'd be fine.
Find a way to get the boots.
It's 19,000 building, but I'm not going on. I'm repeating.
I live for these.
People know me stance.
1993 WWF. You know, if there was ever a great business year for a wrestling company, it's that. Anyway, yeah, go check that out if you can manage to listen to the action on top of the cat caller from the crowd. But yeah, I'm sure it's another cork. I look forward to listening to it myself.
Yeah, no, we enjoy doing the show, and just hope the listeners enjoy it too, guys. So we're very proud of it. But yeah, boys, have a good rest of the show. I will catch up tomorrow. JP, I'll see you the weekend. Benno, I'll see you Friday for our Dynamite review, my friend.
Can't wait, mate. Oh, cheers then.
See you later.
See you, mate.
See you later, mate.
Well, on that note, JP, it's just me and you. Speaking of packed crowds, there we go. You got a nice pack behind you. I mean, nice little segue there. We should talk about how our weekend went. Did see it on Sunday in the flesh, JP, which is always odd. Real life meeting, and of course, the venue we chose for the real life meeting was going to be Crystal Palace. As we both made our journey down. I noted on the pre-show, I did have a nice stop off in Slough via Croydon to get to Crystal Palace. So you know my shit old town quota is also had to stop in Wembley on the way home, JP, which is already set up by the way. Big they got the advertising boards up with the AEW on it.
Okay.
Comes around every now and then. You get Taylor Swift and then you get AEW. So it's a good little bit of a brand synergy there as the circle around the adverts on the big boards, and then you get like a 10-minute advert for EE and then the England national team. Don't know why the England national team needs an advert on the side of Wembley, but apparently they do. But I saw all those sites this weekend. Unfortunately, I think you only got to see one pub and a venue in Crystal Palace. So
basically,
picturesque for you.
I was kind of all right about it as like in the end. The pub itself, I don't know if you went to afterwards because we had to get back because it takes 2 bloody hours to get there by car on there as well. And obviously Joe drove us down, so it was like a proper old school meetup. It was just incredible. It was like kind of so surreal at points. It was like, right, have we gone back like 5 years in time? This is just like at a Rev Pro. If we'd been in York Hall, that just would have been the one thing to kind of like complete the look for it. But the pub we went to, it was right on the corner. It was quite near the train station. It was all right. It's a decent pint of Guinness. Check my fantasy team. It was as it has been this week, but that's a conversation for another time. But that was all right. And then just we parked on the hill on the way down to the venue. I mean, did you? Because that's going to be part of it. I sort of wanted to make sure we talked about the venue.
Well, I mean, this was my first time in the area for me. The Westhout House, I was just getting the name up. I think that was the pub because I missed you beforehand because we had a fucking for like this is me being a dumb northerner, just assuming I can get into Croydon and out really easily. And it looks like on Google Maps it's only 10 minutes from here to the venue. It was not 10 minutes. Probably by the time we waited for the Uber, it might have been 40. And weaved through like some weird housing estate that sits between Croydon and Crystal Palace to get there. We did in fact see though, and I don't think it was the real one, but like the flat building from Peep Show. Did see that on my travels in the cab, or at least one named after the Apollo House. Was that not what it was? It was called in the show. I'm just telling myself it was the real one, and not just one that some opportunist has opened up. It looked the same anyway, so that was fun. But yeah, I ended up missing you going for a pint before, so I had to join you in the mega queue outside. And yeah, I think for me it's like, you know, you go back 7 years, and that's our first spotlight review was High Stakes 2017, from talking to your Hall show. Here we are, you know, 8 years later, would it be? I think it's 8 years in fact, later, doing another High Stakes 2024 review. And I went in thinking I've heard not one positive comment about the Crystal Palace area, about the venue, about trying to get there. And I was starting to believe the hype a little bit when, like I say, I struggled to get there a little bit, and then I got there, and there was a gigantic queue outside that you were in that me and Steph may or may not have bunked. Apologies if anybody was behind us there on the way in. But once we got in, I actually thought it was all right, to be honest, as a venue, JP. It's a very much... it's a leisure centre. I mean, that is... For damn sure. It reminds me of Matty's not today, a Park Road Leisure Centre that's between mine and his house. I play badminton there sometimes, JP, but it's full of like blue crash mats, and there's a shit swimming pool in there. Check for both of those things. It's a fucking gigantic space. Like, got me steps in over the weekend just going to the toilets and back in Crystal Palace, which was fun, by the way, because if you were looking for the toilets next time you're there, just follow the smell of deep heat, because the wrestlers' changing room appeared to be next to the toilet. So like, I turned the corner, I was like, what's that? Oh yeah, that's wrestlers. That's what that smell is. It's a fucking big old space, isn't it, JP? And there are basketball hoops knocking around. Platter got that too.
Lack of diving boards, which I thought was somewhat disappointing, but it was kind of like I say, first time for me. It's not an area, and I've got it tarnished with just a bad traveling experience to Selhurst Park when I was younger. And it was like with my dad, I was like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, this is just like taking me 2 hours to get from North London to South London. But it was kind of like a different time. So I was like predisposed to not like it. And you look on the outside, and you look at the queue to get in, and you're like, oh, Christ. But I have to say, as a venue, I like it. I completely get why they run there, particularly if the economics are working out for British wrestling. It is massive. It's very old. Like I say, it's an old leisure centre that I'm assuming has some sort of listed building status around there as well, right next to an athletics track. And fuck me, was it muddy, because it had been pissing it down at points. So I ended up getting a load of mud on my trainers, which bothered me massively throughout the entirety of the show. And meant I had to kind of walk into puddles deliberately when I went outside. But it was like, when you walked in and I saw the setup, and I was like, okay, is this been, like, in terms of getting there, has it been any worse than getting to York Hall? No, not really. Is there plenty of space? And yep. Is there great sight lines? Abso-fucking-lutely. Is there security staff who, dare I say it, not heavy-handed and overbearing, more bothered about us getting anywhere near the mic? That's fine. I'm all right to play by that rule.
Mikey says he missed us. We weren't out to spot, to be honest. We were up at the top where the bar was, weren't we? Stood there in what we were eventually. We didn't dub it Grapple Corner. Somebody else did. I think Kilby did. But we were there in the air, stood the corner there. But we were literally by like the production setup, which just appeared to have not enough fencing. Because like after a while, one of the security guys kind of politely came over and was like, I think they're picking you up on the mic on the live stream. So if you can hear any chatter during the first match, that is us. And eventually,
like an episode of Dynamite, mate. It's all right. They're quite used to it.
It was like a live commentary track, you know. I don't think there's any. I'm sure, you know, Quilden will take that. But we moved on. He was very polite though. He was lovely. He was like, just move on a little bit. Didn't make us, you know, go sit down or take our seats or whatever. So we kind of that's always our way, isn't it? We'd prefer to stand at the back and have free reign for you know, smoking area. Easy to get a pint. Easy to get food. Actually, there was food in there as well. Yeah. We were quite happy there, really, where we were. And I think I echo you. Overall, not disliking the venue, with a couple of caveats. One being, again, that I drove and then we took an Uber, we stayed in Croydon and took an Uber from there. So that wasn't too bad. Coming from central London, I heard a couple of horror stories, especially going back, and I know it put a couple of people off. Didn't put up a couple of thousand people, which I'm sure would be the Rev Pro argument on the other side. But, I think the other thing that really helped it as far as a first impression, this is a venue that I've heard nothing but stories about. I was shocked when I found out you'd never been before, JP, because I just assumed that there must have been some kind of, show back in the day where, Dirt by Kid ran it or something like that, and you were there, or one of those, classic late 90s, early 2000s Brit Res shows that you were presumably at, but you weren't. And maybe if I was at one of them, or I was at one of the more empty Crystal Palace shows, I'd maybe have a more negative thing. But if you go and it's busy and it's full like this, it was well lit and set up, and it looked good too. Probably looked a lot better than the tapes I've seen from those, early 2000s shows at Crystal Palace.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, for video viewers, you can see is the picture behind me, which is taken from Rev Pro's Twitter feed as well. I did want to use yours, but you taken it when we found the spot and people weren't sat down. I thought I didn't want to do one that kind of looked like there was like kind of.
I was worried I gave that impression. Yeah, there was a big queue still at the time. I took that photo. I meant to take another one. I also think it probably looks better than the lighting behind you, to be fair, because that's where it all lit up. That was what I was going to say. If I could see like blue benches and blue seats, I don't think I'd have been as impressed with it. But the way they lit it and the way it was full and there was pretty much a bum in every seat, it just looked like any other big venue. Because especially for us, because we were so far back, kind of standing by the bar, you could kind of take the whole thing in. And I thought it overall looked good, and I didn't mind it. It was warm in there, but it wasn't too bad. I don't know if I'd want to go to a show in the height of summer. So yeah,
I struggled, mate, with the heat at one point, and I had to step outside. I was like, "Fucking hell!" I'm like sweating.
Jumper, mate, it was a mistake.
Oh yeah, that was a bad mistake. I brought a jacket in there with me. I was just daft. But I would say, if there's a criticism as well, the toilets generally. I mean, it feels like we're going into the small fry avoiding. Trust me, we'll talk about Michael Oku and Will Ospreay, but I'm going to talk about the Crystal Palace toilets first. But these are things that are important for necessarily getting there. Like
live experience,
live experience as part of it. Like you've got to go down to the other end, but I don't mind necessarily getting the steps in. But it was just that overall. I just realised, oh no, we're going to be all right standing here. We've got a cracking view. There's nothing we're going to miss from where we were watching the show generally. And there was a couple of times I tried to like sort of walk around to other vantage points. I was like, yeah, just as good. Perfectly happy with that in terms of the tiered system. Crowd was fucking hot. And you mentioned there as well, just in terms of this is the thing I think with York Hall is I'm so scarred by that experience in the main that I've always had there, that anything that's slightly better than that, I'm like, yeah, just give that to me all day. It was really like just being able to easy access for food and drink once the initial queues had kind of died away, and it just felt like
great, but they were all right. It was better than your call bar. Easier to
play that. Yeah, played havoc with my stomach, that did as well, and I ended up quite glad I wasn't going to be able to drink much because I'd work to go to, so I had to make sure I had just cans of Coke. That's absolutely fine. I was perfectly fine with that as well, but it was it just wasn't. There wasn't grief. And that's often the feeling I get when going to York Hall is grief. So I think there was just I was predisposed to going, yeah, this is all right. I haven't had to deal with public transport, and that proviso has to be put into place. But this is the big thing. If the economics work out for a show like this, and you can get this kind of a number for a crowd, you'd be mad not to run there. You really would be. I'm not gonna,
because they're gonna have shows that are bigger than York Hall. I'm glad. I'm glad they're doing the balance. I think it would have been tone deaf to just give up. And I know there's, plenty of reasons I'm sure we're not aware of as to why it can't always be York Hall, or why they might have had issues with York Hall in the past. But I'm glad they weren't tone deaf and didn't ignore, call it a vocal minority, but vocal part of the fan base that wants York Hall shows. And especially after the last York Hall show, it sounded like they improved a lot of things on the security side. It's the fact that they're doing the Rumble there next month, for example, the fact that there are going to be the York Hall shows, we're told, this year. I think that's a positive as long as there's a balance. If they gave up York Hall entirely to just do this because it's cheaper and easier and whatever, that might be true, but I think that there's a diminishing returns there where I think, the small minority would probably get louder if you had to go to Crystal Palace for all the big, almost said ROH, Rev Pro shows there, as Don says on the screen. ROH did run there once. But yeah, I think that's the caveat for me. But there are going to be shows that are going to be like Will Ospreay's last independent wrestling show, that are just going to be bigger than York Hall. And unless the copper box is an option, which, you know, with the cost of running a place like that, I just don't think it's realistic to expect, you know, a BritWres company to run that more than, you know, the once a year. It sounds like they're going to. It's the best happy medium in London, I think they're going to come up with. It's not going to please everyone, but I can't. You know London better than me, JP. What are the alternatives, unfortunately? Even if you disagree with us and, you know, maybe we went on a particularly great day and had a great experience, but I don't even know if the people disagreeing with us could say alternatives, really, JP. That's unfortunately the problem of London, isn't it?
That's it. And we're not a country that has lots of, like, let's say 1.5 to 3,000/4,000 seat arenas. Basically, what you're talking is ice rinks, which is what we had for like those early New Japan shows, like the ones we went to in Altrincham and Milton Keynes. They were ice rinks. And there is something quite sterile about that atmosphere, but that didn't exist here. And I think, like you say, they've got that balance right. So, for example, a Fantastica Mania show running in York Hall, absolutely fine. Makes complete sense. I mean, I would hope, if nothing else, it means the people who run York Hall go, hang on a minute, we're losing these shows, and go, yeah, maybe you might.
It's the same people, you know. I think it's the same overall company that run both, yeah. But
I can understand, like in terms of if they're trying to work out budgets and they're trying to work out where Rev Pro go to, and I think it
the
actually
individual buildings,
yeah, the individual people are going, maybe we're relying on some of this income for their budget for the year, because the rest of the time it's like a gym, isn't it? Like, well, do you know what? Maybe you're gonna have to put effort into things like how many bar staff you have on, or what the kind of treatment of people there, because admittedly, when we got there was a massive fuck off queue, and it feels like I'm probably over-egging it on here, which somehow, when we were lucky that they arrived, it basically speeded up quite nicely, and we only were waiting for like sort of basically about 10 minutes, which again I can live with, but I was fearing the worst when I originally saw that. And like I say, I think everyone who went, I can't think of people or any reviews or any criticism of it that said that this wasn't worth it in the main. And I think, you know, when you've got it sold out like 2,700 people, that is not to be fucking sniffed at in any way, shape, or form. That's a hell of a number. And as you know, at the risk of sounding like Matty, these are like similar to what some fucking Dynamite and Collision crowds have done. So
when you're analysing in good faith, it's fine, Matt. Fine, I agree. You know, that's fine. Fair talking point. You're right, though. Like, you know, elements in the room. Tony Khan was there. We made that joke more than once. He probably was looking around going, this is busier than some of the Collision tapings. Busier than a Dynamite taping that I've been to in the past. Connecticut wasn't a good time for them when I went. But genuinely, yeah, it was by any metric impressive, you know, seeing that many people there. And I mentioned Tony Khan. The main reason he was there was to see the main event. I'm pretty sure he only arrived for the main event, or at least not long before it. was when Tony got in town. We can talk all matters Tony in London in a minute. I will say Orange Cassidy and who else was it? Darby Allin didn't look particularly enthused at being dragged to the Fulham game by Tony. They looked a lot happier. At least Darby did. Sat next to Tony in his little box as he watched on the main event, which was funny because we did whisper it all night, hadn't we, that he was supposed to be turning up, and it made sense with him being again in the area with AW press business going on over the weekend. But it was funny because, like, you know, we'll get into the main event first, but like for that match, like there was this. Like, and people have seen it on the stream and in the photos, and I'm sure in the show images, there's like a glass partition, and there was one security guard sat in there lonely on his own all night. Flash forward to Tony Khan turning up, fucking Trent Seven's in there, there's Rev Pro staff in there, hello, and there's like, you know, different wrestlers in there who've been on the undercard who've somehow snuck their way in. Like it was full on, like he needed a standing room only in Tony Khan's private balcony that he took there for the main event. JP, it was like, we should have got ourselves up there. Steph even bumped into him. She was going to the toilet, and he apparently he rounded the corner with a gigantic entourage. I'm guessing he was looking for the lovely toilets downstairs at Crystal Palace. Imagine she turned your corner and just seeing Tony Khan right in front of you. He saw some sights, did Tony, and yeah.
Oh, he would have done.
He had a very, very, very big entourage by the end of this main event.
Must have been absolutely stinking in that room as well, how bloody heaving it was, because there was a fuck ton of people in there. And I was saying, Jesus Christ, imagine the sweat going on in that place. All of a sudden, there's like 15 people in this little room looking down on this match. But I mean, it was funny. It was funny seeing all of that and seeing how much it filled up as well. But I mean, and I think this is like, again, it might be part of the charm of the venue, but the way that they did the layout, because obviously it was just above the entranceway, which I have to say, for British independent wrestling standards, I thought like the entranceway and the general production and look of the show was good. And I've watched the VOD back, and obviously sort of minor quibbles aside, because this is
it still a live stream version, or is it?
It is still, yeah, there's still a 5 hour, 10 minutes like live stream version on there. It was fine. I've seen a lot worse from Rev Pro, and I think there's been those quiet kind of upgrades and just those subtle kind of slow, steady changes, which is, you know, that's what you've got to do if you've got a limited budget. And I think they've done like a hell of a job for that. But obviously it was quite fun seeing him in that skybox as well, looking like kind of like quite frazzled at times, but more of which I suppose happened after the main event.
Definitely. Well, speaking of which, like I say, he was there for the main event, and that was part of the entertainment, watching Tony Khan get more and more swept up in the match, and in kind, the hangers on in the box getting swept up in it weirdly, which was quite funny to see. But yeah, you know, it got a bit of attention to the crowd, but they eventually settled down. And yeah, this main event, JP, which was the reason they sold so many tickets for this show. Seen unbelievable high praise for this one. You know, we can talk about the reaction to it and some of the, you know, star ratings that have been thrown around for this one. Expect even bigger when a certain news publication comes out Friday. But it's got to be said, like, just from the top, what an incredible live experience it was to be here for this match. You know, it was up there with the better matches I've ever seen. I'll give you a star rating at the end of it. At least live in the building, and as listeners know, there's competition there in similar type arenas to this, actually. A couple of basketball hoops knocking around there too. But atmosphere-wise, that has to be said, like one of the better atmospheres. I think probably the best atmosphere I think I've ever been in a Rev Pro show. And above all else, and I think Meltzer put it like this, it was the pageantry of it. Because if you put this main event together, it was basically an hour, more than that, probably an hour and 20, including the entrances, the match, and then the post-match promo and the hijinks after it. But that's what this needed, because if this felt like the biggest match Rev Pro could put on, you know, you had the perfect ingredient of Oku, you know, as champion, it being Ospreay's last match, and it just all works so perfectly for this perfect storm of both a, you know, great moment in it being Ospreay's last match, but also a well-built feud. And, you know, before they went out there, they showed like the video package, which they've been guilty of not doing in the past, of the, you know, the story behind it, and about how, you know, Oku has never felt that Ospreay's fully, you know, respected him. You know, all of the stuff with Amira, and obviously the previous match, which you know, I think you'd talk Joe into watching before he came to, because he hadn't seen that one before, but, you know, played into all that history, and then they both came out for this match, and it was like it was WrestleMania level for indie, you know, Ospreay's, you know, big entrance with you know, all his various capes from past. Some looked better than others, but like that felt really cool with the big, you know, I think we called it in the show notes, the Will Ospreay sea shanty entrance that he got, the Assassin's Creed knockoff or whatever it was that he was doing, that made it feel big time. Oku, who did come out first with Amira, his big entrance with them two looking like $1 million, with like a perfectly kind of stage entrance with the two of them looking like the most main event, I would say, that act has ever looked. It was just, even from the start, JB, before we get into the nuts and bolts of the match itself, this felt like as big a match as Rev Pro could put on, and in execution it felt like as big a match as Rev Pro could put on.
Yeah, they did. And, you know, they went all out and they went balls to the wall, which is really kind of the story of this as a match as well, in many ways, that they went so OTT on it. But you know what? They don't often do this. And quite often Rev Pro get criticised for not thinking about the kind of theatrics and stuff like that. But my God, they did all of that. And it obviously had the symbolism in terms of the Ospreay entrance of all of the robes that he was wearing, which when watching back on commentary, that was a point that Gideon Gray was kind of making sure to kind of like hammer home as well.
He was great.
I was stood with you throughout this match, and I can just remember at various points you just started laughing, and you kind of had to there live. You just had to go like fucking hell, like. And I laughed at the end. I did think, dare I say, if there is a criticism sort of before the match, why didn't come out to Elevated, just waiting to like. I think people really wanted to sing it.
I said
and
that
this
live,
particular crowd,
but I'll disagree with myself, and I'll disagree with you. And I actually thought that was genius because then they played it at the end and people got to sing it one last time at a Rev Pro show. So I get it now. In the moment, I did say that, but I actually don't stand by that comment now. As much as the sea shanty song was weird. Yeah.
I kind of want it sung by Jeff, but I just admired. The only times I can remember a couple of times there was like he'd done a similar type entrance for Progress years ago. Like pretty much when he was first going into New Japan and he wasn't going to be there as much, and he'd done a kind of similar kind of like entrance for that, and it worked because it was so balls to the wall. But this is again, I'm not going to do the slide. I have to say of how much like Amira's mad Lady Macbeth style kind of like mannerisms and everything else is it felt bigger than what British wrestling has been producing in terms of like a match for a British wrestling promotion that isn't say Zack versus Will, which is something that is kind of like it's almost like it's like by the by for someone like Michael Oku to have that kind of like the big entrance that he had as well and the extended kind of music, it gave it a big feel. And I think part of the reason for doing it, and this is going to be really the case, is there was no other big shows that week. There wasn't like in terms of like a lot of competition to go up against. There was a chance for them to get that space, and it's like they just went for it. And you have to say, like in all senses, it's a gamble that's like really has paid off.
I mean, as a match, I would say for me, it was like they had a lot in front of them. I was kind of saying to you before they went out there, you know what's going to happen here because it's Ospreay's last big indie match. How long's this going to go? As long as Will Ospreay wants, Alex, one of our listeners, was stood next to the time. He ended up doing a runner, didn't he, for his train, unfortunately. With about
Littlehampton, and I was like, now poor bloke.
Probably 25 minutes to go at that point. But that's unfortunately, for him and people like him, what this match was always going to be. And I've rewatched it on the VOD, and I've actually surprised myself in that, like, I thought the long run time would be a positive live, but I wondered if watching it back whether I'd struggle. But I actually think they paced the match really well as well. I think that's what works so well about it. The first half an hour of so, and I've criticised big New Japan matches for this before, so it's almost a lesson that maybe Ospreay's taken from New Japan. There was a lot of long setup. There was a lot of establishment of, Ospreay's the guy. Ospreay's the ace of New Japan who's going on to AEW, and he doesn't see Oku as on his level. And there was a lot of one-upmanship in the early stages of it, of Oku trying to keep up with Ospreay and trying to stay with him, and getting those little wins kind of as the match went on, and more of those little wins as the match went on. Then weaving in, obviously we all knew it was coming, but weaving in, as you say, the melodrama with Amira, which while you knew it was coming, I thought the way we can talk about it, the way they used hair was particularly creative and well done, and came at a right time. It just kept feeling like when I was there live and when I was watching it on the VOD, like it was almost like the perfect excess match, because just when you thought, okay, they've going on a bit now, it would switch gears. We'd switch to like the Amira section of it. We'd switch to the near fall section, which was quite a long Kurt Angle S section, although there wasn't too much of that either. And it was, again, biggest possible stakes in the one of the biggest matches Rev Pro will ever put on, in Ospreay's last indie match. I'm sorry, but in this occasion, you're allowed to click out of some daft stuff, If you're going to have a believable near fall, and this was another thing that they did so well in building this matchup, they made it believable that Ospreay could win and the belt would be on the line in the Rumble. So it made it even more believable when Ospreay hit like that. It was like that triple combo of the hidden blade, the one that took out Amira, and then he hits his big finish, and it's like, you've seen that so many in big Ospreay matches where once he hits those, that combination of 2 to 3 moves in a row, it's really done now. This is the real actual finish. this was the match where you could get away with doing that kick out, and I thought Oku was perfect in the way he would kick out of it, like that limp kind of body shoulder kick out. And Ospreay, got a kick out or two in there himself as well, which was, had similar stakes. And again, they did a perfect job of taking that split crowd where maybe there were people who were more invested in the Rev Pro story and the Oku side, and there were people who were, one invested in Tony Khan being in the skybox, but two invested in seeing big star Will Ospreay and being excited that, this was Will Ospreay's graduation. It kind of took both those elements and had the best possible way you can have a dueling crowd where half of the crowd is living or dying by Oku and half of the crowd is living and dying by Ospreay. And that excess, that live in the building, you're right, there were a couple of moments where I think I definitely let out a laugh at some of the absurdity of some of the big moves and some of the big kickouts. I've got to say, while I love those in the moments and it was a laugh of joy, watching them back on the VOD, they all made sense as well. And for me, this was a perfect, epic match for that live crowd there as well. And now I haven't seen it back on VOD. I don't think I can really argue with the people who've watched it on VOD and have gone crazy on it been reason. Their best match of all time probably isn't something I would throw out there, but up there and possibly, I think, as Quilden says on the commentary at the end, he calls it the best match he's ever seen. I'd agree it might be the best Rev Pro match ever. And it's because of all those elements. It was the big match you imagine. There are people out there who had the idea of an almost 50-minute matches, going to put them off entirely and they're not going to watch it. But it was the execution of it. And it was the way they told this story with the two of them. It was the stakes that this had made it not a frivolous 50 minutes. It was a 50 minutes that meant everything to both of the wrestlers in the ring and felt like it meant everything to the crowd there as well.
And because we'd had that great first match, it had earned the right to have the 50 minutes. As well, it earned the right to it, and they were right to do it in the way that they did. I mean, and you've described it, it's like wrestling with excess. It's so excessive. I was kind of getting vibes of like a big sort of, rather, you might think of like an overblown epic that you might see at the cinema that has kind of like, to a certain degree of kind of like say the pageantry, or even at moments days kind of say like even kind of silliness. What it did have, though, was like, and I think this is the thing I found on the VOD, because I was like you, I thought 50 minutes, this is going to be a bloody slog. And it really wasn't. I thought this was incredibly straightforward, like for me to watch. And and you know what? I'm going to say it as well. It kind of helped with the commentary to a degree. And I know I can understand if people are a bit sort of like slightly funny, maybe about sort of Gideon Gray, but you've got two people who are so invested in Rev Pro as a promotion calling this match. But it was so, like, it's kind of so wildly out there. I know in terms of the ratings now, I think it's gone down to like 50th greatest match of all time as more people kind of come on into the mix. But I was thinking,
Brit Res match in Crystal
Palace. It really is. And what were they going to do? I mean, I thought for a while, for the first half of it, when I was there live, my initial thoughts were actually, they're not going to try and top what they did last time. A lot of it's going to be the kind of like the story is what they're going to go with. And then they kind of hit in another gear. And because that crowd was never going to let it go. And I did wonder at the end of all of this, I was like, is there any other promotion that's ever going to get Michael Oku the way that Rev Pro gets Michael Oku? And obviously, him being a Londoner as well, kind of all playing very much kind of like into the mix at the same time. I mean, it's fucking brilliant. It's got every bit. I can't wait to see how Matty reacts if he ever gets round to watching this as well, because you kind of think to him as well at the same time. There's
enough people in the building for him to watch it, but we'll see.
Yeah. Well, it should be, man. He'll say like it's big. Well, he might be hearing us ordering, ironically, at the end of all of this stuff. But I think this is like, just this is the like I say, it's got the whole wrestling world talking about Rev Pro and talking about like, just it felt like they were kind of like, okay, they're back on track. And it felt like, I'm not saying that they were like off track massively, but it felt like they were able to deliver on a big match. That's not always been the case with Rev Pro, and at times in some of these like kind of big promotions. And and Oku again, like, I mean, I know Joe came in and he was a little bit wary about him. He says at times I never like kind of saw him as it, and obviously he had a break from wrestling as well. And I think by the end of it, he was like, no, I'm kind of sold. I'm sold on Oku as the guy for Rev Pro.
Tony Khan had to be, watching from his vantage point, because he is someone who's, he's done the stuff and he's had the plaudits from different wrestlers who I'm sure have had Tony Khan's ear, and for whatever reason it hasn't happened. For Michael Oku, whether it be in Japan or whether it be AEW or some kind of big opportunity, you don't want to see, him get snatched from Rev Pro at a time when they're losing Ospreay as well. Kind of the nature of what a company like Rev Pro is going to be. But you'll find them hard to avoid doing that here, because that was the thing about the match. Like, Ospreay is gonna get the majority of the plaudits because it's Ospreay. We always say, a lot of people wrestlers in the world's best match. Guess who it's with? Will Ospreay, and it's with them for a reason. But I would say Oku was as much a part of why this match worked as Ospreay was. Again, the story going into it and the stuff they could play off the last match was definitely part of it as well. But Oku sold this like it was the biggest, match in his career. And I feel like in the end, even if the crowd was 50-50, 60-40, maybe in Ospreay's favour, the biggest credit I can give with Oku is that it ended up with the entire crowd jumping up and down and dancing when he got the win like that. I watched that sequence back twice tonight when I watched the VOD back of, and again, I feel like the commentary helps it. It's not actually great commentary because it's, a lot of shouting, because it's a lot of emotion, a lot of earned emotion, a lot of real emotion. And for that reason, it actually is great commentary. It kind of works because like that sequence between when it was like, you could feel it in the building. Oh, fuck, Oku's got him here. When he hit the Sega Mega Driver, which was like, what a perfect thing to do en route to finish here, is what a lovely nod to Matt Curtin. You could tell, the commentary kind of, right away caught onto that, and that made it, all the more of an emotional call. But like going through that, going into hitting that frog splash finally, which has, been another, big story point of this. What happens if Oku manages to hit the frog splash? And not only does he hit one, he goes up for that second one. And again, you could feel everybody in the building living or dying with whether he'd made that mistake going up that second time and whether it was going to fuck things up with him. And then him hitting it, and then Ospreay kicking out, and then it ending the only way it should, which was with Michael Oku's finish, which of all things is the half crab. And again, it was like an elevated version of it, wasn't it, in the end? But all of that was Oku. All of that was how likable and how much he'd won this crowd over, even if maybe part of it wasn't there to be there for his story. It's just how likable a babyface it is, how much fire he's got, and just what a feel-good moment it is to see somebody like that get this big win in this big match with an Ospreay. Like, execution-wise, maybe it wasn't a flawless match, but emotionally-wise, was it a flawless match? It absolutely was, and it was for moments like that. Goosebumps just talking about it, felt it in the building there, and felt it, again, watching it back today. Just absolutely incredible stuff, and comfortably the best match, I think, of Oku's career, depending on whether you prefer the first match. Ospreay, it's match of the year, I think, for me so far. And for Ospreay, it's up there in the pantheon of his great high-level matches, and we all know there's a lot of them.
Yeah, you say the idea that how many wrestlers have had their best match with Will Ospreay. Well, this is up there with some of the best matches that Will Ospreay's ever had, and that is high fucking territory. That's a high fucking bar. So, that is something that's incredibly important that we have. That just that credit that Oku's managed to do that twice, because the first one, it feels like in some ways it's more pleasing because it's a surprise. We're expecting it probably to be good, but not as good. And this one has that kind of weight of expectation. So they just decided, well, let's go big, overblown epic with it then. And it does, at some point, we will get a third match. And that was very much intimated in the promo. We knew that because, there'll be points where he comes back in there as well. And the dynamic, I imagine, will be very different in terms of what type of characters they're portraying and how that ends up coming in. But this is, you mentioned about a match kind of really earning it. It's hard not to go through this match and feel like just every aspect of it was completely earned. And like you say, it's amazing. I've watched a 50-minute match twice over the course of sort of 3 days, and it's not like either time that I think, oh, this is a drag. And remember, we'd been standing up after a long show by the time we'd gotten to this match as well, and hadn't had an intermission. and I felt fine leaving. That was the weirdest thing of all. It was like, okay. I felt like I got what I paid my money for, and like this, and I think this is going to be one of those matches that I think you're hoping where it leads to with Oku, and it was mentioned earlier by Don in the chat as well about that idea of Tony Khan, you've signed the wrong one, as the chant coming through from the crowd in it, which is fucking great. That was a really cool chant.
Well, we can talk about the post-match as well, and as I'll always say, I think post-match counts in rating too, and I did think Oku was very, very good to kind of leave the ring to Ospreay. They had the little moment where, again, part of the story of the match, Ospreay finally giving Oku that respect, and if anything, it was Oku helping Ospreay up. I love that little touch when I watched it back as well. It's like, boy, became a man type stuff, and not the story we thought they might be telling with some kind of heel turn or something wacky like that, or dare I say it, Ospreay winning. In the end, the almost what should be predictable, but maybe wasn't predictable, result was the right result and gave it the perfect punctuation for the end. Got to ask, what would you give it as a star rating? Where would you go? I think I know from live in the building, but I was unsure on the night. I think I know now, but a lot of fives being banded about, JP. I don't know if you're that high, but what say you?
I'm gonna go 5. Having watched it again for the second time, and I needed that second watch, like you. At the time, I wondered whether or not it was too much. Like there was that part of me that went, okay, this is like really overblown, but is this? If I look back on it, am I going to think of this being kind of silly? And then when I went back and watched it with the commentary, I was like, nah, this has earned it. Like, and it doesn't lag. There is, if you want your big high spots, you get your big high spots. If you want blood, you get a bit of blood. You want melodrama, you get melodrama. If you just want some batshit stuff, all done in front of like a hot crowd from beginning to end, you've just got to say 5. I think you do have to say 5. And you mentioned about it being like sort of emotional, like it's not flawless, but quite often that's a point that we'll always raise, that sometimes those ragged elements of matches that do kind of make it. And that's the thing about, I hate the half crab as a finisher. That elevated version, though, on the other hand, I'm absolutely fine with. And that should be the new finisher. It should be like a version of that half super finisher to go to that one there. That would be, I liked that it finished on that as well. And I came away feeling like, I say, story finished, like but that's how it was. It was like it was a well-told story that feels like at this point, at this sort of chapter of it, it's ended in exactly the right way with the right person winning. And those red herrings of the towel, of a mirror, of the heel turn and stuff like that. It's good that we know that they're there, that they're thinking about this, but that's good booking for you to kind of lead us away from the obvious. Whereas the obvious one is, this guy's leaving, this guy's staying, and he's your champion. You want him to be put over at the end of all of this. And guess what? That's what happened. So it delivers on, like, I think on every kind of conceivable level. Other than those people, I get for stylistic reasons, may not like that kind of excessive match and want something told that's a bit more serious. But
yeah, I'm not recommending it to Jamesy, but I'm 5 as well. The only doubt I had in my head, I would have said 4.75 on the night, I think. Just out of fear, because I gave 5 to that bloody CCK match, and I've never lived it down. And there was parts of me like, am I just getting swept up in this, and the live crowd being there, which is stupid when you think about it, because that's fucking part of it. I felt so good after this match. I felt so good about Rev Pro in general. It felt like a feel good night, for a promotion that absolutely deserves it. And you look at Michael Oku, and almost a crowning moment for him in a career, and he absolutely deserves it. So then I watch it back on the other, and I was like, yeah, of course it's 5 stars. Why would you have done? That's a good thing, and it is a good thing, because even, like I say, on the VOD, how loud that crowd eventually gets. Like we've talked about, odd comparison to make, like we talked with, Hogan Warrior and the Hogan Rocks of the world, and people will go, well, it was only good because the crowd were loud. Well, the crowd were loud because it was good, and the crowd were loud because of the work the guys did in the ring to make that crowd even louder. And not being kind of sitting down and watching it on VOD today, you could see the nuts and bolts of that. You know what I mean? Picked up on little things that maybe I didn't fully pick on. Again, like you say, with the great spots with Amira getting dragged into the ring, which I think you spotted coming before anybody else in the building there. And those little moments, like the little callbacks with like the Styles Clash and all of that just sunk in even better watching it back. So yeah, in the end, with a bit of introspection, I went 5 myself as well. It's a 5-star match. If you go 4.5 plus, as Big Dave will always say, that's absolutely fine. But I can't see many people going below that. Like, this was best British match of all time territory. That we could get into as well. And again, as far as a moment goes, that's what this was almost more about than the match itself. As good as the match was, the fact that it was there, the fact that it existed, the post match with Ospreay being left in the ring, as I said before, kind of dropping the stick, as will happen. And then obviously, ended up with his AEW hoodie on, didn't he, as well? But giving the crowd that one last time as we, filed out to sing Elevated, I think was in the end an inspired touch. And even the stuff with, it was nice to see, Tony Khan in the mix. He come down from his lofty box, as good a box as you can get. It was probably a changing room in Crystal Palace. And he was down where the commentary team was, stood with Andy Quilden, and Ospreay directed a lot of promo towards him and what he was going to do next with AEW. Felt like a proper, I said graduation early, Japan style graduation of I've done everything, literally, and he literally, as Ospreay, has done everything he possibly can and more so, and has probably stayed more years than he probably should have when it comes to work in British Indies. And I don't think anybody's been shortchanged from an in-ring point of view on Ospreay's British Indie run. But it was great to have that moment of new boss. There's my old boss. Gave thanks to to all of the right people, including Quilden himself. Tony Khan was raising up Andy Quilden's arm, wasn't he, trying to get the crowd to chant for him rather than Tony. It was an absolute scene, and it was the way this should play out right in front of everybody. God, there was a long way out from those days, JP, where Tony Khan could just sit in the cockpit and you could wander over, have a chat with him. He needed his own box, and he needs to be, in the commentary area with the bosses, really. Yeah.
Oh, he was on one. Although there was quite a funny bit where it looked like they'd all left. They left the box, and he turned around Ospreay in his post match and he went, "Oh, they're all fucked off." And then he obviously came out to where Andy was as well for that, and there were people running up to Tony Khan after the fact as well as you kind of would have expected,
as quick as he could.
You'd be completely running out of the way. And I did think to myself, there's probably some fucking personal trainer who's going, "What the fuck happened in this room over the weekend?" Stuff like that. Some poor clean lady's like, "What's all this stuff on the floor?" But I'm not going to go into that. I'm not. Yeah,
plug for Wembley as well. Appreciated that.
And it made me hope as well, and it's probably it's like a kind of a slightly separate point, but aside to this, and it somewhat links into the opener as well, of the chances of a burgeoning relationship between Rev Pro and AEW. I think something that we have always felt that what the AEW have too many of, or that's wrestlers, could a lot of them do with a bit more work and going to places to have extended programs. Absolutely. Then if you're Tony Khan and you're looking at this, and you're looking at this, if you're looking as well, hopefully at the VOD on the plane on the way back and thinking, do you know what? This is actually a decent promotion to send people to, then fucking do it. Like, that is like, for them, this feels like an absolute no-brainer. We're going to talk about, young lions and people being sent over there. I'm not saying Private Party have to move to Portsmouth. They don't have to. They've got things called planes. They can go home and they can see their families and the rest of it. But you can send people over there for a few matches to do a loop of a few places just to get a bit of more experience and a bit more seasoning. And I think, like, you would have come out of this thinking, this is the environment I kind of want them working in. And here's some young talents as well, hopefully, that you'll be thinking, I've got to keep my eyes open on it, because as we've said before, it's like that British market at times is completely like undersaturated. And I think a couple of people like announce in advance of, like, if your big import is like an AEW wrestler, I think they're going to draw just because we just don't see them.
It was encouraging to see what we've all just assumed would happen eventually, like an AEW Rev Pro relationship, and seeing, people like we'll touch on, the rest of the card, but like speaking, people like a go-go being on the show, rather than doing Progress, he's now doing Rev Pro. Maybe we can, read into that. And Tony can't be in there himself. You don't see him at fucking, the ballroom in front of 200 people. He's here at a Rev Pro show. I think probably read into that hopefully there's more to come from that point of view. And while we're talking it, the other big headline from that point of view was who else was on the card as well. And I kind of rumbled what I thought it was probably going to be when they announced it was going to be a multi-person match to kick off the show. But I'm guessing your mind might have been more on the former MLW star who was also over for that opener. But yeah, unfortunately, what are you gonna say?
I thought it was when I saw what I'm assuming Orange Cassidy's anger and Ollie Watkins double, who I really wish I hadn't fucking subbed out of my FPL team this week. That's another story for another time. That maybe that double made him think, we need to cheer ourselves up. Let's get to Crystal Palace tomorrow. Come on, we'll stay an extra day. We'll get over there. But maybe that was going to be the thing that would kind of like work for them. But we were in the queue, weren't we? And then all of a sudden, hear the music.
That's it. We were at the bar, and they'd announced the multi-person as an international scramble match, and the big pop for the outside star wasn't for Richard Holiday. It was for Orange Cassidy. Honestly, I have never heard like a louder reaction for like a surprise person than this. I think it said a few things. One, it said obviously anybody in a building like that for a Rev Pro show is going to be card carrying people who are watching Dynamite and Collision every week. Two, it told you that unlike the rest of us watching that Villa Fulham game and wondering what might be on the cards for Rev Pro at the weekend and wondering whether that international word meant anything. There were a lot of people in the crowd who just hadn't put two and two together, but mostly it just said what a gigantic star and babyface Orange Cassidy is. Far a big removal, I'd say, from the days back of going to watch a Fight Club Pro show in Manchester, which was the first time I think I saw Orange Cassidy did double duty that night. One match as Fire Ant, another match as Orange Cassidy. Also famously saw him at a King of Trios in Wolverhampton, where Matty I think bought him a pint with the kitty that we'd put together, just assuming it was some ginger bloke in a white t-shirt and blue jeans, not realizing it was eventually going to be Orange Cassidy. We're a long way from them those days, JP, because for an act that gets a lot of grief from certain corners of the internet, been on TV for just shy of 5 years at this point, and shows no sign of being any less over of a babyface act. Orange Cassidy came across like a gigantic star in this setting, as he should, but I actually don't think, even if he'd have wheeled out Derby here, I don't think he'd have got the reaction that Orange Cassidy did.
He was absolutely perfect for the style of match they were doing, just as a scramble match to open and entertain the crowd as well, with a nice twist of us thinking it's Shigehiro Irie as being the sixth man coming into the mix. And I don't mind old Shigs, but he's no Orange Cassidy. It did.
Yeah.
The song.
Can't pull Jane off.
No, it would be. I'd like to see him try. There's a part of me who would really enjoy seeing that just for the sheer shits and giggles aspect of it as well. But it felt like what they delivered on was like a perfect opener from that as well. And I think it was just because it's something that people wouldn't have paid for. Like that was the last match to be announced that was happening on the show at all. So this wasn't like, they've got a mystery person who's coming into a scramble match at the beginning. That wasn't something they were going on about for like a month at a time beforehand, when most of the matches were kind of set up and in place. This is stuff that's happened like kind of really like sort of towards the end. And like you say, it's that kind of reaction, and he's brilliant. He's a brilliant fucking worker. And here, admittedly, he didn't have to do as much because it's a scramble match. He just had to do the Orange Cassidy bits, which he absolutely did. The way he delivers the promo and stuff like that, I mean, it is, I think any of the criticism is based on like, it feels almost like it's just let's have a bad faith take on a gig.
Just shit people saying.
And we're gonna it's just shithousery and just fucking trolling, really. Because clearly the guy, and I've said this before, like this is someone who really could be the face of AEW, of like, actually WWE don't have anyone like this person at all to be able to kind of wheel out in front of crowds. And while the match itself was a decent kind of scramble match where people got their shit in and the rest of it, he just elevated all of that for like a lot of these people, because this is like a guy who, we forget about this, 6 months ago he headlined a major fucking pay-per-view against John Moxley. Like, this guy is a big star. Like, regardless what anyone thinks, he is a big star. And I'm not talking like, you know, we have comedy and meme wrestlers like your Danhausens of the world, but Orange Cassidy's well and truly a step above that. Like you say, Darby, wouldn't have got this reaction.
Richard Holiday, for his sins, took the pin as well. MLW will have its day. But yeah, he's involved in the finish, you know. That's involvement, and yeah,
he was all right.
Webster and Erie got put over as well. He was, yeah. He's someone I'd like to see more of in this setting. Definitely, I know he's had a couple of bookings with them, so yeah, nice to see a Richard Holiday appearance. Any notes on Danny Luna, Sapphire Reed, or Youngblood against Kieran Lacey and Mark Trump? Kind of for the next couple of matches on the show. I know you came rushing back to your seat for the for your standing position for the Youngblood match. I did say that to Joe. So JP will be back in a minute from having a smoke. He'll be right back for this one.
And he was. Oh, and he absolutely did, and it was fucking bonkers. I suppose I'll talk about that one first of all, because don't get me wrong, there's stuff in here where they were far too overambitious for what they were trying, given their experience levels. Like True and Lacey, like they were trying stuff, and it didn't always work. But by God, did the crowd go into this, and at least sooner see young wrestlers with ambition and try and do something to kind of get themselves across. And True and Lacey, I've seen them, I've seen the names of them. These are clearly like, it's hard because, you know, if you follow enough British wrestling, you see sort of teams like this like they're around, and then sometimes they kind of just go, and you're like, oh, do you remember them? They were there for a bit. Looked like they had a little bit of potential. But these guys, I thought, like their heel shtick, I thought, well, okay, this is a bit beyond what I would have expected. The New Japan lads have fucking size, particularly Oscar Leuber. Like he's a big old lad. It's a ropey haircut, but you know, I don't think I've really got any room to necessarily talk about that. And they tried some shit, and it worked, and it was wild. And by the end of it, I thought, yeah, this is sloppy. But do you know what? Going back and watching the replay, it's like 10 minutes of just people getting their shit in there as well. And I just think to myself, run this match as a series. These two teams should be facing each other up and down the land for like the next month. This is what it should be, because they'll all get better as a result of this.
Definitely agreed. And on the other point, you know, Danny Luna and Sapphire Reed, I've seen this match panned a little bit. Again, maybe it's live bias. This isn't one I've gone back and watched. It was a bit sloppy, like for the first while. I think that's possibly more Sapphire Reed than Danny Luna. I don't know, but I actually thought once they got it together, especially the second half, like I was buying the near falls. I thought it was well worked, and you know, it had unfortunately second match on the card placement, but I thought it was a well built match. It had the post match stuff with Alex Winder as well to kind of continue on that story, but it felt like there's a story or more than one story brewing in the women's division in Rev Pro, and you know, it wasn't more than a 3.25 star match, but it wasn't bad by any stretch. It was you know, a good defense, if anything, for Danny Luna, and you know, continuing to establish in front of your biggest crowd, you know, as your female star to go opposite Alex Windsor. Thought it was absolutely fine as a bit of business.
Yeah, that's what I honestly, criticism of it would be, well, what's the experience level of Sapphire Reed? What I would say about Danny Luna is, it feels like she's come on leaps and bounds.
Yeah.
And those trips to the States, it feels like they're doing her like the world of good.
She feels like more of a package now. Entrance, gear, all of it.
When she was just laying in her offense then towards like various points, like really kind of getting stuck in, and it's like, oh, okay, she's really got, you know, she's grappled Charlie's one of the favorite wrestlers up there with Shun Skywalker. It's an eclectic mix that he goes for, but she is someone who is like, feels like she's just well worth going with, because there might come a point in time where she's signed over and she's over in the US a lot. I could easily see that happening, simply because, you know, she's got the right kind of age profile as well. The work is picking up in place. And Sapphire Reed, she could have very easily been completely overawed by this situation. And like you say, there was stuff in it that was a bit rough. At the beginning, there was a spot that was her diving out to the ropes where I thought she'd really kind of hurt herself. But do you know what? They did, in the main, generally stick the landing. And I'm more, you know, I looked at this and I thought But trust me, we're going to talk about a match that's much fucking worse than this. A couple of matches that's worse than this that involve people that you wouldn't necessarily expect to be in those kind of spots as well. But yeah, this was absolutely fine. Like three and a quarter, and I'd probably, like you mentioned about the tag, probably give that 3.5 rather like the opener as well. And they're solid ratings for what you want your first 3 matches on the show to be.
I'd probably go 3 for the tag, but that's on a slight. That's the type of match it is. Loads of going fun sequences in there, fun, hard man spots in there. But maybe the fact is that they got outdone by this next match we need to talk about as we wrap up the first half. There was no intermission, but like the other big match of the first half for me, and if anything, something I spoke to more than one person who said that this was probably their match of the night. If it wasn't for the main event, was Luke Jacobs and JJ Gale. This is one of 3 matches I've gone back and rewatched because I had to, and fuck me, was this a fight? Like, I said on the weekend show, I was like, Luke Jacobs, the praise behind him seems to have, not gone away, not completely dissipated, but died down a little bit. He's almost taken for granted he's kind of part of these shows, and he's good, and I wonder what's going to happen next for him. And they went out there and had like near the on another show. This is the match of the night. Fucking powerbomb, slaps, chops, big fucking heavyweight lariats. It had everything you would want in this one. This was it was a proper big lads match, and I came away, I know JJ Gale's not exactly a gigantic lad, but Luke Jacobs gives that impression, and yeah, it made me think way more of JJ Gale than I had in the past, and it just reminded me of my own words on the weekend show, and yeah, maybe I'm the one taking Luke Jacobs for granted, because fuck me, is he starting to look ever the more and more polished heavyweight that's surely going to get snapped up at some point.
Oh God, yeah. And we forget how young he is. How old is he? I want to say he's like 24 at this stage. I mean, I might have to very, very quickly check on that, but this isn't, again, one of the matches. I mean, I kind of went back and watched pretty much every match on the show. I won't lie. There's one of the matches I had to fast forward through because I thought I can't stand or sit through that match ever again. But yes, 23 years old, Luke Jacobs. And you look at it and you can already see the change in physique, where actually he's starting to bulk up in a muscular sense. Like at this stage, he's always been like a big lad. And he fucking delivers on these big shows. And it's funny because I've seen JJ Gale in there against Zack Sabre Jr. and it at the Copper Box, and it just was kind of lost, really. And I didn't think it was particularly good. And I've been like, okay, this is someone clearly that they're high on. And this was the first time that I thought it really shone through about, okay, because he looks like he's in good nick as well. And there was a bit more confidence necessary in his work. And I think just Luke Jacobs brings the most out of people as well at the same time. And yeah, there was that one spot where I think he dived for him and he tried to do a leap off the guardrail. And he didn't catch him.
Wrong. He went a bit wrong. Something. He hit something. Yeah. It wasn't what he was intended to hit. But tell you what I love, like spot-wise from this match, that finish of Luke Jacobs. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like it's a fucking brainbuster, but you end up on the other side when he takes the bump, which kind of screwdrivers you. Whatever it fucking is. Good Lord, is that a finish? It was a great finishing sequence there as well, with the lariats, and then that needed from Luke to go over. Oh, he looked like a proper man here, and it was a proper finish.
He is. It's so. And after that, yeah, he's in the Rumble as well. And you think of the guys that they're kind of elevating. This is a match and a feud you want them to go back to at various points. If this was on a 229. And I was able to get down, I think, yeah, that's the kind of match I would want to go down and see, like sort of close up, because it absolutely delivers and he's fucking awesome. The thing is, I actually want to see Rev Pro when they go to Manchester, because I want to see the reception that Luke Jacobs ends up getting. And if Luke Jacobs is in a big match for a title, it's going to be absolutely massive. And he was someone who, sorry.
I was going to say, that felt like it took them by the surprise the first time they were in Manchester and they had Luke and Ethan as a tag team. I think they were trying to work heel. I think they've learned that lesson now. Yeah, they'll lean into that on a big show, I'm sure, coming up. But yeah, that one I'd probably go 3.75 to 4, maybe even 4.
I got 4.
Quite comfortably. Yeah, actually, yeah, 4. I think 4 was about appropriate for that. Wouldn't go that high on the next two, and we can kind of talk as a job lot. Feel like this was the offer matches section of the evening, JP, as we had Mustafa Ali against Robbie X and Shingo versus Trent Seven. I'll forgive Shingo and Trent Seven. Obviously, that was not the plan as far as Shingo goes. And, you know, yeah, obviously the Gabriel Kidd injury caused this to happen. Trent Seven presumably was going to be at the show regardless. Look, he's over. He got a big... It's not like he came out and everyone booed and groaned. Everyone cheered. They get big moves on each other. They had Trent Seven's impression of what a Japanese match looks like. You know, it had Shingo in it, so it was never going to be so bad. It was a 3-star match in another way, maybe 3.25 at a push was that one. Don't have much more to say on that. And yeah, probably paired it with some analysis of Mustafa Ali and Robbie X and your thoughts on that. These were a couple of the big import matches, JP.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say too much different away from the Shingo match. It was too long. Even like this match, you should have had a good 5 to 10 minutes taken off it. If that was the case of a substitute, then just like, okay.
How long did they go in the end? It was like 25
minutes.
Over like
yeah. I want to say it was like over 20. I felt like over 20 minutes. Yeah, 22. 22 minutes here. It's like bloody, it didn't need to go 22 minutes. So for me, it was really just like a 3-star match. And it was like
gesturing for a rematch after the match. I was like, no one wants to see that Trent, mate.
I'm fucking seeing that.
He plays a part in these shows, and he deserves praise for that Connor Mills match we were raving about last week or the week before. But he should. I don't know if he's anybody's idea of a Shingo Dream match. So if we agree there, do we agree on Mustafa Ali, Robbie X? I was very excited for this. I'd forgotten it was on the show almost, and then got all excited again when we did the weekend show. Here Mustafa Ali was he was late to the show, wasn't he? He got some trouble getting there, but when we got there, he was looking pristine in his lovely suit. Saw him there at Mitch selling Mustafa Ali figures in person. That was fun. Entrance, I love the song. Like, it's a really good song, and it's the whole politician presentation thing. You know where I'm going, JP. Then the bell rang, and he went out there and had a 3. Again, as a slight, I'll say this 3.25-star Cruiserweight Classic match, and if you keep it up on my star ratings, that's not the worst star rating I'm giving tonight, but I feel like I believed, and I haven't seen it yet, and maybe I will see it in other places. You know, Mustafa Ali was this hard done by, push the cruisers WWE guy who he was finally going to get out of the WWE's, clutches, and we're going to see the real Mustafa Ali. This is the 3rd or 4th match I've seen of him outside of WWE, I believe, maybe 3rd since he left. And I left with the same feeling I did the other matches, that was fine. That was professional. That was Frankie Kazarian, Chris Sabin in the X Division going out there and giving you a professional wrestler having a professional wrestling match performance. There's no more professional wrestler than Robbie X. That one I don't mean as a slight. Robbie X is great. He was there to eat the pin. He was there to lose to the quote-unquote star coming in. Did a great technical job doing it. I think Mustafa Ali maybe went a bit overboard, putting him over after the match, pretending he had any idea who he was coming into this match. But, it gave Robbie X a bit of a rub, and then the match ended, and I will never think about it again in my life because it was a throwaway, pretty good professional wrestling match. Does Mustafa Ali have more? I really hope so, but I haven't seen it yet on the indies, and I didn't see it here.
Yep, it's the first line of my notes on here is at this point, this version of him, I can't see what people were banging on about. I like the idea
I was
that
one of them too. I've got to say, I'm not even talking about others. I said it, but I'm not seeing what I thought either. I'm not seeing it.
He should have. He has all the component parts, you'd like to think. But I just was like, this was a professional wrestling match. That's the second line of my notes on here. That to be proved wrong. Maybe he's saving it for some sort of big performance, but we didn't see it here. And if you figure in terms of, is the juice worth the squeeze with him in terms of bringing him across? I'm not sure it is. Now, maybe there's a commercial aspect that would kind of work and make that work. But if you're the idea that somehow, we're going to bring him into AEW, should bring him in. And my first, I've seen it's like, why? Like, what would he offer? Like, it would be, I'd look at him as no more different than say Tony Nese in some ways. I know we all have people where you just go, I'm not quite sure on this guy. It's like, I hear he's got star potential. It's like, he's decent in the ring. It's like, yeah, there's loads of them who are decent in the ring. People who are decent in the ring, there is a multitude of them. I just didn't see it. I didn't see stuff that was spectacular. And yeah, he slid head first into the second turnbuckle, but that shouldn't be the big takeaway from this match with Robbie X. And like I say, I think I said it on the preview for this. We know what Robbie X is like. We know how good he is. I'm just not convinced by like Ali for the kind of fanfare that surrounds him. Need to see more than this.
That's how I felt too. Maybe he'll come back. Maybe we'll see him again. But based on this match, I'm excited to do that. Last two matches outside of the main event. Probably one good, one bad here, just to presume you have the similar takes to me. Start with the one bad, Anthony Ogogo and Ricky Knight Jr. What happened here, mate? Anthony Ogogo's music hit, and I was like, why do I recognise that? Like, oh, fuck, it's Anthony Ogogo. Forgot about that. Forgot about him. I fantasy, again, another one I fantasy booked. 2.5 years ago, can't remember how long ago it was now, probably that long, maybe 3 years ago, thought Anthony Ogogo working Rev Pro was a good idea. This match was a great example of why Anthony Ogogo working Rev Pro would have been a good idea 3 years ago, because we're now 3 years on, and he hasn't really got anything, has he? Like, maybe he'll get there, but we're getting later and later in the man's career, and I'm wondering whether that later ever comes. Yeah, I don't think he offered much here in this match with Ricky Knight Jr., who himself, as we talked about, on the weekend show, has looked a little bit unmotivated and not like because it was funny because Joe's experience of having gone back and watched the Ospreay Oku and the Ricky Knight Jr. match kind of came out of it with the take, oh, Ricky Knight Jr. is the guy. Why aren't they going with him? And we were like, well, actually, mate, if the last few shows and people who are going to Rev Pro constantly are kind of all saying the same thing, that just something has dropped off with Ricky as far as his performances. And yeah, I don't know if it was an example of that or it was an Anthony Ogogo just not having it. But yeah, clean as a whistle, Ogogo went over Ricky Knight Jr. Maybe that tells you something too. And yeah, 13 minutes I'd wish I'd spent at the bar.
Do you know what? And it is probably about, let's say, 8 minutes too long for that 13 minutes because it felt like 30. Dragged. It was boring. It probably didn't help that Anthony Ogogo clearly had a load of family there who were dressed up like they'd gone to gladiators. We did have one funny moment of one of the kids when he was going around high-fiving them and then he just turned around and video viewers could see he just straight up with the double fingers and then just ran back to his seat before he could slap his hand. I thought, cheeky bastard, but that is actually quite funny. But that was it. It was like in my head, I was saying to myself, what's the problem here? It's like, this shouldn't be the kind of match he's working. This shouldn't be the kind of match they're doing. We're talking, he has to be doing sub 5 minute matches that are based around his punch and the ability to do that. And if you don't think that can work, it's like he won a bronze medal at the fucking Olympics. They did this gimmick with Logan Paul and they made that work. And that's Logan Paul, not a professional boxer like Anthony Ogogo, and that's what it needs to be. And whether or not it's short, it would have felt like something completely different. Instead, it just kind of dragged, and he won, and it's just like, this shouldn't be it. I just came away from this thinking, as a heavy, maybe that's the route he should be going down. That's the route he needs to be in. But at this stage, I was this was proper boring. Like, it really was. It was just like, Jesus Christ, it's dragged. I mean, I found myself like walking around to a different vantage point. I wasn't feeling great at that point in time. I'd come back in and I was like, fucking hell, like this is a slog. And it's 13 minutes. That's not that long in the scheme of things. Speaking about a 50-minute match that kind of goes by and you don't really think of it being 50 minutes. Jesus, this felt 50 minutes, but 50 minutes of just like bad shit. And it wasn't even a quarter of that fucking time. So yeah, not good.
2 stars feels generous. I'd probably say maybe more like a star and a half, maybe. I'd give that one. But at least there was one more positive to say about the show before we wrap up on Rev Pro, and it was the semi-main event, which was Zack Sabre Jr. and Connor Mills. Bit of an interesting back and forth here with two lads looking very Eminem. The two of them with the matching hair as Connor Mills continues to, as we were very pleasantly surprised by, beefs up and just feels more like he knows who he is as a wrestler, both in style and how he carries himself. I was fucking made up to find out the trivia point that when he did the double stomp through the chairs in the Trent Seven match, apparently that was genuinely, as I thought it might be, a tribute to Loki and Kenta, which great man, Connor Mills, one of my favorite wrestlers. What a guy to be coming up with stuff like that. There was even, I think Joe pointed it out, a bit of a Nigel knockoff with the clothesline thing here. So he's definitely watching his mid 2000s ROH as Connor Mills, and I thought, yeah, it was one of those where, you know, Zack Sabre Jr.'s been in that same position himself as the British guy who's working against the important losers, and the argument is you get more out of it by losing than, you know, or maybe not more out of it, but get plenty of rub out of it by losing. Don't know if that's always proven true, but I do think it was true here. I think Connor Mills hung with Zack Sabre Jr. and got to show on a bigger stage in a match that a lot more people, I would think, if they hit and play on OQ and Ospreay 15 minutes earlier than just hit and play on the match, are gonna see, compared to that 229 match with Trent Seven. And yeah, a great place to do it, and just a man who seems to be putting the puzzle together.
Yeah, this is I've in the main, I think I've always been generally quite high on Connor Mills in terms of seeing the potential, because he's someone who feels like he's really put in the hard yards, and the thing you need to do is to wrestle lots. And he's one of those guys who, when there were various tiers of the British wrestling scene that had left or have gone, it was like he was almost like kind of like thrust forward. And at a time, you know, you think he's a very young guy. We would see him wrestle at Progress, and he was like 17, stuff like that. So you forget kind of again how young he is. But like you say, he's filled out. He's found himself in terms of this role. There's a natural story with Oku. The crowd are coming round to it. And I think there's a combination thing, like you say, like, and this, I know I did see the criticism was like, they're losing to a lot of imports. And at times you think, okay, I think I was more like Luke Jacobs losing a second time to Ishii was a bit like, oh, come on. Does that really need to happen? Whereas here, this is Zack Sabre Jr. This is someone who just beat Bryan Danielson last week. I'm not expecting him to lose to Connor Mills the next. But did Connor Mills get lots? Absolutely. Is he working with bigger stars so he knows what it is to be working in these bigger matches? And we've seen Connor Mills have long matches before and it's not work. And this is like one where you thought, well, no, actually, here, like, you know, talking over 20 minutes, like this is one of the definitely like the match with Trent Seven, I'd say is like a better and much more entertaining match. But this did the job it needed to do. It's working with big stars. Had a hot match the week before. It's bringing him along as like a major force at the top of the card. He's found a look that works for him. And yeah, do you know what? If it means pretending that you're Kenta, that's fine. Just pretend you're Pete Kenta. You'll always get some joy on this podcast, certainly with that as well. And it was, you know, I think I'd probably go for it like ratings wise about 3.75, but that's not like it's some kind of a slight. Like there's a lot of people who kind of crumble in that role, and the crowd are kind of with him as well. So it feels like this is a crowd that is like, you know, it didn't like completely go entirely partisan Zack Sabre Jr. And he lived up to his end of the deal. And I think this is, you know, he's one of the guys who's gonna be around, and this is what a lot of, I imagine, 2024 is going to be. But who are those people who are coming up to challenge an Oku out of a Luke Jacobs and him and JJ Gale and maybe a Leighton Buzzard and hopefully at some stage Ricky Knight Jr. And you think to yourself, like, that's ultimately the job of all of this. And this is what I think this match isn't going to deter from that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it was overall kind of sums up the show in general in that, yes, you know, it's a show built off the back of it being Ospreay's last indie appearance. That's, you know, can't be lost in a lot of the draw here. Also, you know, investment in the Oku Ospreay story as a whole, investment in Oku. But it wasn't one of those shows where it's all about the exit and star, or it's all about the import, of which there were a couple on this show. It felt like a proper big Rev Pro show in that instance, even if we didn't necessarily enjoy the Shingo match, or as much as we might have enjoyed the other version of the Shingo match, or didn't necessarily enjoy Ali's appearance. It felt one of those classic Your Call shows where I've got those names, and it's like a random Richard Holiday playing the role of MJF, you know, a few years ago on speaking of you know, Rev Pro Your Call shows, where it's like, oh fuck, that guy's here. It had a lot of that, but it also, for me, I came out of it positive, you know, on a British wrestling story. beat that, in both. I think the Luke Jacobs JJ Gale is probably the overall, high point of the evening, but it's not the only one. I think I came out again thinking, okay, as far as Connor Mills goes, it wasn't just a one-off. It wasn't just he impressed me by doing a Kenta double stomp. I thought he was good here too. I felt more positive about him. Feel more positive about Oku going forward. And there was a bit of build there done for the Revolution Rumble as well, which is exciting. Like, I know it's in March and it's so soon that I'm not sure I can justify a trip to your hall, but I'm tempted based on it because I love a Rumble. And, Luke Jacobs entered it, and I'm interested who else is going to enter it and how they're going to get to this next stage with the Oku title run and whether that heel run does eventually come. I feel invested in, not just the top line stuff, but a few of the, the talent up and down the card. And I don't think we've said that coming out of a big Rev Pro show even in the last while.
No, that's it, isn't it? And it's the optimism in the main that I have for, like, if you think of that bread and butter business they do, those 229s shows, we even like preview a lot of the Southampton shows and things like that, the shows they're doing up and down the land. They're a company that's really, this felt like this show was also a reward for lots of good, solid, like, work that they do behind the scenes in building things up and making the best with what they have. And fundamentally thinking, okay, there's a core of young people here that we want the crowd to kind of go with and follow. And that's what they've got in place. And that's as much as I can realistically expect from them. Like, and shows like this made me think to myself, would I come back to this venue? Yeah. Do I want to watch the Revolution Rumble? Yeah, absolutely. Do I want to watch even Fantastica Mania? It's like, I could easily be talked into going to that. These are things that hasn't always happened after big shows, or I think, okay, I'm kind of like, scratch that itch for a few months. Like, nah, this is a promotion that feels like it is rewarding to watch and follow. And like I say, we've been like often very, very critical about the production side of it as well. That is something that can't be kind of mistaken as well. Like, there are some obvious like little production snafus and stuff on the side, but my God, they're working and they're trying fucking hard and they're getting a very solid product in place. So, yeah, 2 thumbs up from me.
While being positive about Brit Res, I'll keep this short. This is not a Brit Res section that we're going to have every show, guys. Once in a blue moon, Rev Pro have a good or big show, and that's kind of our limit, I think, these days, because the closest number 2 probably isn't worth the airtime at this point, as far as the more national promotions go. But there's still, as our friends the Ogdens will often say, fun things going on a local level. And speaking of the Ogdens, they did find themselves at a Brit Res show this weekend due to the train strike. That was another issue with the Crystal Palace show this weekend. I know there was, I don't know what it is. I don't know if the people at National Rail just look at Andy Quilden's diary and go, okay, that date, and that date, and just book all the fucking strikes in. But they couldn't make it down, so they ended up going to a show in the Manchester. And JP, we think we got big stars. How about this? Making mainstream news. All of the news. I could have took me pick of the different news outlets, so I apologise for picking the Mirror. I could have gone with the Independent, mate. JP. That might be a bit more close to our values. I don't know. Maybe the Guardian should have gone with. But they're all fucking
Mirror's all right.
It.
Compared to the Sun, it's well all right.
As a kid, that was the progressive one. I think it's probably shifted a bit now, just like Labour. But anyway,
progressive is probably a bit strong, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway, Les Battersby fucking did a wrestling show this weekend, JP, in the annals of history, next to Dave Benson Phillips and Mr. Blobby. Who knew that Bruce Jones was his name, and who knew that Bruce Jones was going to do a wrestling show? Apparently, came out in full, what was described to me as Orange Cassidy-like gear, whereas I actually think he was trying to do Scott Hall, because as Joey Hayes said on his Twitter, he came out and said, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here. That's a real promo cut by Coronation Street. And he did a couple of spots, and yeah, as is pictured there on the Mirror website, earned his money with his LBWO t-shirt, which I'm sure they're not going to get sued for. But is that a sight you ever thought you'd see, JP? And do you regret not going to Manchester instead of making the trip down south?
To see another Sov Pro magnum opus. I didn't expect to hear about the Les Battersby World Order. Like that's something that is just a combination of words I never thought would be the case. I did know it was Bruce Jones though, because he was in a Ken Loach film called Raining Stones, which is fucking awesome.
Okay.
He has to raise money for his daughter's communion dress, and he gets him with some loan sharks in classic Ken Loach style as well. But seeing him turn up at a wrestling show, I didn't fucking see this. Clearly, if there is a podcast that is all about getting big soap stars into like wrestling shows, it is this one. Of so fucking many we can think of, the day that Steve McFadden turns up is probably going to be the day that we end up exploding, just simply because he, whether he likes it or not, he's been a big part of this podcast and particularly the Patreon since that's been launched as well. But yeah, Les Battersby being in there as well, and see Andy and Jeff meeting him, I was like, well, spiritually, the fans who should be meeting him is Andy and Jeff. If it was anyone else, I'd be all like disappointed.
Only Joe, because as soon as the Ogdens sent that photo through to our group chat, first thing I did was get the phone out and show Joe. He had a hearty laugh at it and was again regretting all of his life decisions about not going to Soft Pro instead of Rev Pro. But I think we got the better wrestling, but they got the bigger stars. I think that's we get there as video viewers get the picture of the Ogdens there with them. My God. But what a trios team that could be, in the
yeah,
Tony can't shame.
Next fucking trios champions with Les. Wait, look, if they're doing TV over here in the UK, you want to get Les Battersby in that front row, don't you? You want to be working, I don't know, just something. I would say if you had Tully Blanchard around the place, do some sort of angle with him. Maybe that could be something that would work. What times?
Oh, brilliant. Well, on that note, we should get into some quick other stuff, some here and there. Running a bit late on this Wednesday night, but there are a couple of notable news stories just to run through, including one that's just dropped, JP, because it always happens when we're recording. But first up, we'll go to what was scheduled. I don't know if you can answer the question, JP, what the fuck's going on at TNA, but the question remains, what the fuck's going on at TNA? Obviously, we've covered in plenty of detail the Scott D'Amore story. We had a bit more on the timeline of that. It sounds like, reading between the lines, I think the way the story was originally told with Scott D'Amore, it sounded like he tried to buy TNA and then he was fired. And the way Meltzer put the story in the Observer this week, and I know Meltzer's not had a great track record lately, is that Scott D'Amore knew he was going to get sacked, and that's why he tried to buy TNA a bit Eric Bischoff fusion media in a bit of a different way. So we got a bit more colour on that. And the other thing that's been going on is what feels like a bit of a roster mutiny. We saw it on we talked it on the weekend show, the big letter the TNA talent had sent through, and then we've seen over the last couple of days, Josh Alexander being chief among them, but a lot of talent tweeting the hourglass emoji, which apparently Karrion Kross wasn't happy about. I don't know if you can copyright an emoji, as
you can
Jordan
fuck
Grace
off.
told him on Twitter. No, former TNA star, I think he'd be sympathetic to it. But yeah, Josh Alexander tweeted that, was followed up by quite a few other people as well across the roster, as Big Dave talks on 411 there. But it turns out it was starting to get reported, though, Josh Alexander's contract might be up. Let's see where he's going to go. Thought we'd be speculating on that tonight, JP, but instead, TNA has exercised its option to extend the contract of Josh Alexander for another year, including tagging him in a tweet about it, what appeared to be against his will, just out of nowhere to squash the rumours. And nothing says happy shop and happy campers like while they are contractually able to do that, locking down someone for another year who clearly probably had their eyes on the outside, or at the very least wanted to renegotiate here.
Yeah, and you think about in terms of the exercise, there'll probably be a bump in pay because that's normally the way when somebody exercises an option on it. But it's not good. The only times I ever see like this happen is in the world of football, where clubs do it in order to get some sort of transfer value for selling someone on who really doesn't actually want to be there. Like,
transfer fees in wrestling, can we get that? Can we do that?
Well,
great. I think it'd be
yeah.
Imagine that transfer deadline day. We'd have a great weekend show.
And I can see here it's Takeshi Kidani's turned up at the offices of Anthem Entertainment here. There's a man stood there in a car park with a dildo in his fucking ear as he's trying to give news.
Who'd be Harry Redknapp? The
Teenage
wrestling equivalent. Paul Heyman. Would it be Paul Heyman sat outside
absolutely Paul fucking Heyman. Absolutely. Oh, God, yeah. But you think to yourself, like, I was going to say Harry Heyman at that point. But it's not a good sign. It's not like, and it's also the language. It's not like he's originally going to say re-signed, but he's just extended the contract of, which then suggests that he's off. It's the problem is with him.
Endorsed or retweeted or talked down or anything. He's a very professional wrestler, is Josh Alexander. That one I don't say is a slight. He's probably, as reports are saying, going to see this contract out and do this year. But it feels like a really unnecessary year to slap on for. Again, it's weird because like things were so positive. We've said it a few times recently. Scott D'Amore, whatever you want to say about him, seemed to have like an idea of what TNA was. So they lent into that. They had all this goodwill, going into Christmas, and then they've come out of it. And they're forcing people to sign contracts. The roster is unhappy. And I know it's an easy joke. I know it's low-hanging fruit, but have you ever seen a more TNA move, JP, than to do this?
Yeah. It is. It's entirely self-destructive, and if it's being done for the reasons that we kind of think that it is, I mean, and this is the other thing as well, is they've not headed it off. Like they've played it very badly as a PR move here, Anthem as well. And you do have to keep that roster happy. I mean, it should be noted that it's quite a saturated marketplace for wrestlers. So in terms of the amount of companies who can pick them up, for Josh Alexander, say, and we're going to talk about Steve Macklin or a Jordan Grace, there are going to be options. Going to be places where they can end up going to, and you brought up the story there on screen about Steve Macklin's contract being up in May. I'd imagine him to be going. He's had a kind of good run, but this isn't the kind of stuff that suggests this is going to be any kind of like a good move morale wise. And they do have to think about that, because what you get in terms of the morale, if you've got a group of disillusioned wrestlers, you're going to get a somewhat disillusioned product. They've got no reason to kind of go above and beyond. Trust me, like you mentioned, Josh Alexander is a very professional wrestler, but he's going to be thinking to himself, right, okay, there's stuff, what is he now, 37? What stuff is he going to be able to do? He's done everything he can do in TNA. We should be talking about this guy being given a breakout run in the G1. That would be, if New Japan ever got its arse into gear on those kind of issues, that would be something that'd be in place. But, I think all they're doing is by kind of doing the like almost no selling how the roster kind of feels, not having that big meeting with them as well. Surely that'd be the kind of thing you want to do next time with TVs. Go, right, we're just going to have a big clear the air conversation with it. We're going to talk about why he couldn't, be open and honest with their talent roster and about why they've had to make the change they have done. But I don't think they will do. I think they're just viewing this as like an entity. And some of these people who won't be happy may not find spots to be able to go anywhere else, but they're not in a position where they can allow just people to go up on the open market, because there are spots where they can end up going to.
Yeah, and it might not be AEW, but I think that was the thing. People fantasy booking Josh Alexander in like a New Japan Strong, I could picture that being a landing spot for him. Yeah, people are going to be looking on the outside. Unlike Ace Steel in this last quick TNA story, who apparently we do know now as a producer. Could have presumed that from obviously him being there a lot lately, and CM Punk turning up at TNA before he signed with WWE. I love this quote, just to include. Working with TNA as a producer at the moment, said Ace Steel on the Two Man Power Trip podcast. Loving that, loving the atmosphere here, just a great backstage feel. When was that quote from? Has he been backstage in a few weeks? Because it doesn't feel like that's the case right now. But God love him, and God Ace Steel's finding work. Let's hope he doesn't bite anyone.
I was going to say, given the last time he was backstage, it can't be any worse than how that feeling was, surely. Because the last time he was backstage, it was a big old fucking ruck, which he was very much at the part of.
Unless you believe the conspiracy theory that he was covering for Larry the dog, I still maybe buy that one a little bit. One day we'll get the true story on that when we get Larry's tell-all book coming out. But on that note, one quick last news story I think worth noting, unless you've got anything else, JP. Came through the wire while we've been recording. Didn't think we'd have much AEW to talk tonight, but on the night of a Dynamite, apparently AEW are about to announce Jennifer Pepperman as Vice President of Content Development. If that name rings any bells, we did pick this story up, didn't we, JP? Don't know if it was on Spotlight or a weekend show. She was obviously on WWE Creative, was the longest tenured female creative member, and worked for WWE since 2017. And people who knew did indicate that this might be an O2 award. Worked closely with Mercedes Moné, the former Sasha Banks, and was very much involved in the women's division in WWE. if this turns out to be true, and I have no reason not to believe it, with it coming via SI, big pickup for AEW, possibly, you know, depending on again, with all of these types of stories, JP, we're just assuming based on, you know, hearsay that she's actually good at her job. Let's assume she's good at her job. Let's assume she's, you know, responsible for the good things that have happened in the WWE Women's division, including, you know, maybe some of the bad things as well. But can't hurt, I think, to have more female voices backstage at WWE, and I know it's something Steph's been pushing for, and has asked Tony Khan multiple times on conference calls. At least he'll have an answer now, rather than just listing every woman he knows and all of the women that live in his street and his mum, and as many as he can, without actually answering the question about who helps with creative, who might be of the female gender. I think this will hopefully be the answer going forward.
And it's, do you know what? We've said, I've banged on a load about infrastructure and the idea of being able to kind of, you know, build up people who are going to be able to write TV, because it can't just be Tony Khan, and they need fresh voices in the room. And here is a fresh voice in the room who, dare I say it, is who isn't a bloke. So that's, like, I have to say, like the damning with faintest of praise, but at least it is something. I mean, the proof's going to be in how good is she booked, how good is this going to make, if it is a case that she's working with Mercedes Moné in particular, how big that debut it is, because they're going to need to nail that. So I remember her debut at Wrestle Kingdom and just thinking, like, what the fuck is this? This is just fucking weird. So, like, it needs to feel big and it needs to feel important, but it's fleshing out that infrastructure, which they've been quietly doing with a few, you know, pickups and a few hirings kind of here and there. You hear more about backstage people kind of coming into the mix, and I think all of that has to be like a good thing for them as a company, because they sure as fuck don't need any more wrestlers. They are fine on that front.
Well, Brian Keith disagrees, but oh well. We'll talk about him next time.
He's doing all right, Brian. He's doing absolutely fine. I'm sure he's probably fucking all over Dynamite this week. That'd be my prediction for those people listening. Going, oh, Dynamite come out. Oh, it was the Brian Keith show.
Can't believe we haven't talked about it. Yeah. Oh well. Yeah. Hopefully everybody enjoyed Dynamite. If you're listening to our words after Dynamite, which you probably will be. But yeah. Anything else, JP? Any other notes or stuff going on you wanted to mention? Excuse me.
Oh, there was only a couple of things. Tanahashi was speaking about his new role in New Japan, but it wasn't necessarily a whole lot. He's saying you needed to build some big stars. That meant a lot overseas. And on another note, bear shits in wood. That's like the other kind of big takeaway I take from a comment like that. And I did laugh because I put it down there for shits and giggles. I'll probably talk more about it in the news dump tomorrow. The NWA have got a streaming deal with the CW, including an unscripted series. And it'll be one of these stories that literally will have entered your ear in here and just left there. And you'll never think of it ever again until I maybe mention it tomorrow. And there's a fair chance I might even forget about it as well. So, yeah, other than that, I think we've covered the biggest stuff of the week.
There you go. Well, we'll be back to normal. One week a habit of the Wednesdays, but I've enjoyed the Wednesday. It should be back to Tuesday next week. But of course, patrons can keep tabs on us and our wildly varying schedule over at patreon.com/grapple, or more to the point, the Grapple Discord, where we tend to use for most of our communication now. So if you haven't linked your Patreon to your Discord, please do, as there's a patrons only chat waiting for you there, as well as a general chat for everybody else out there, free to join. Anybody in the world can join. Just hit the link in the description. But yeah, on that note, patreon.com/grapple, youtube.com/grapple, get all that good stuff. And then else to plug, JP?
No, that's basically it. We're going to be doing When Worlds Collide this weekend, so you're going to have that one up on there. I would also want to give a big shout out to that Big Match Gym mixtape, which I think is an incredible piece of audio for that. And the other one on Dealer's Choice, which shouldn't be remissed because basically it's incredibly prescient, Hollywood Rock 2003. So if you're watching this stuff going, has The Rock done this before? And go, well, there's a podcast that covers all of that. And that was Matty's choice for Dealer's Choice this month as well. And we still have Gareth's. So next week on the pre-show, got that coming up as well. Brilliant stuff.
Amazing stuff. So yeah, look forward to all of that. And yeah, we'll be back with the weekend show with me and Matty on Friday. Spotlight back again next week. But in the meantime, go forth, folks. Have a great rest of your week. Have a great weekend. And we'll catch you again next week.
Bye.
Good night.